discussion, I have went over the minutes and I would move for their approval.
All right, I would need a second.
Listen.
We have a second. All those in favor of accepting the minutes signify aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, I'm going to change the batting order a little bit like I usually do. We're going to go with the highway department because Mary is my favorite. So Mary,
Mine too.
for the record, yes.
Yes.
Not what you told Tanya.
As soon as they leave, I will tell Tanya she's my favorite. All right, welcome Greg and Mary. What you
Good
got-
evening, everyone.
What you got for us?
We have a couple of budget amendments where we're moving some money from our fund ending balance, and then we have a road closure. So we'll take them one at a time, and I think on top you will find there is a budget amendment for some postage charges where we're weighing the packets that we're sending out to the people in the Plainview area, some appraisals and that type of information that we're mailing out. So it all has to be weighed. So we're using the postage machine here to do that. So that's to cover that postage. And again, that will be moving from the Public Works fund ending balance. So we'll take these one at a time. You'll move on to the next one.
Well, I think, yeah, since there's money trading, we probably need to take these one at a time.
Okay.
So does anybody have any questions on those postal charges?
Is it certified mail by chance? Just
It is.
curious, so.
All of it's certified, so we can kind of start the clock running, so to speak.
You said this is going to who?
The property, the partial owners in the Plainview, Sledge, Miller, the Christiana School
Trying to acquire right away.
improvement, I guess, project, we'd have to call it.
So we're going off the road, outside of our right of way on these.
Actually, yes and no. Some of the drainage stuff will go off the existing right of way, but a great majority of it is off of the existing right of way currently. But when all this is said and done, these packets are going to go to make those right of way modifications. So it start out outside the right of way, but at the end of the day, a lot of it will wind up back in the right of way because the right of way is changing. If you follow what I'm
Where
saying?
we'll be purchasing the right of way, is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
that's
Or
right.
getting it done?
Yeah, that's what the
Well,
packets are about.
Well, here's what my concern was, is maintenance effort, because this is coming out of your public works ending fund balance.
Yes.
If it's inside the right of way, then it doesn't necessarily have to come out of that part, does it?
Well,
I'm worried about maintenance of effort.
We're going to meet the maintenance of effort, that 5-year rolling average. This is not going to take that out of balance to where we're not meeting that maintenance of effort. But as you can imagine, there are two separate ending fund balances, one for public works and one for the highway department.
Well, if we're not going
The
outside.
overwhelming majority of this, I don't want to interrupt. The overwhelming majority of this, the funds that we're using to make these improvements is coming out of the highway department's fund balance. So this is just an effort to maybe spread the pain. So yes and no. There are going to be drainage improvements made outside of the right of way. Will each and every one of these packets have improvements made outside of the right of way? The answer to that will be no.
Well, you know what my concern is. It is, there's not that much funding in this as compared to the highways budget. And, I want to make sure that, we're using it for where we have to go out off the right of ways.
Yeah, I understand.
I understand where you're coming from.
I understand what
too.
you're saying, yeah.
That's why I was concerned with maintenance of effort too,
We're pulling, the last budget amendment to make, just for the record, the last budget amendment that we made to start this work and start paying for the engineering for this project, we'll call it, for the road improvements, that was a $3 million budget transfer out of the highway department's fund ending balance. This is $2,300 from Public Works, so it seemed appropriate given all the circumstances and the balances that exist today.
You're making me feel better about it, so.
Any more questions on the postage?
How many packets are you mailing out?
Overall, I'm going to estimate that there are going to be 70. We're still,
85?
well, there's 114 parcels. So the parcels that there's no take on, we're not mailing those a packet.
Okay.
So probably 70% of that 114 or so parcels, there will be some amount of take that will be required to make these improvements. So I'm going to say there's going to be 75, or about 75 packets that have to be sent out.
And there's going to be more than one packet
Yeah,
sent per parcel. The cheapest we have mailed yet is $8. We sent a full packet that was, I'm thinking like $15, maybe a little more than that. And this is only a handful when we've got as many as 70, and it's not a one and done. There's going to be other mail-ins for each one. This is, here's what we want to do, then there's a packet of, here's your, it's more than just one packet sent per parcel.
And
Right.
it's 2,300 to cover all that, you said?
Right, and we got this number from Mark Tucker.
Yeah.
So, and this is strictly for this. The highway department has their own postage, and I have stamps, and that's what I use for the highway department in our checks. This is strictly for the Plainview and doing the mail-ins for that. And there was not even a postage line item in the Public Works. There's never been since the start of time on it.
Right.
And so this is that, and again, the road board did approve this yesterday morning, so.
Need a motion?
Move to approve.
And a second. All right. All those in favor signify aye.
You need to call roll.
Oh, roll call, I'm sorry. You're right. We're spending money.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Sharino,
Yes.
and Commissioner P.
Yes.
I'm a
And
yes too.
Commissioner
Yes,
Fish.
I'm a yes too. All right.
All right, the next one is for a new position inside of Public Works that's going to be coming to us. We had an opportunity to hire a young man that I feel like is going to be quite an asset. He has a lot of mapping experience, and he has a minor in hydrology. So I feel like not only will he help the Highway Department and Public Works Department, I feel like he'll be quite an asset in our engineering of town. And that's where his office will be. This money that you see right here, this will get him through the rest of the fiscal year, his salary and his benefits. So that's what you're seeing here, this $22,360.
That's basically replacing before we got leave, right?
No, it is not.
It's an additional.
It's an additional employee. We are hoping that that this will, I don't want to go too far off into the tall weeds, but I feel like this will be an apprentice for a current employee. I think a current employee is considering, maybe retiring, and I think this person could step into that role. So that's another reason that we're hiring this individual.
What's the effective start date?
That would be
210.
February?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Currently, that department only has 7 employees now. It's an engineer, foreman, legal secretary, and 4 equipment
Equipment operators.
operators.
this would be an administrative person that we feel like can step into the roles that we know are going to come open.
Any discussion on the new hire?
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer there and the related benefits.
Second.
All right, roll call.
Commissioner Payne,
Yes.
Commissioner Sharino,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
and Chairman Kush.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, the next thing we have is what we call a waiver of damages. It's where we're going to close a portion of a road. In this case, it's the majority of the road. It is out off of Burnt Knob Road. Again, this is something that was approved at the road board meeting yesterday morning. It's a standard form that we use in this situation when there's a simple road closure that's being requested. This is a dead-end road that goes up into a piece of property that's owned by one property owner. They requested it be closed. It's going to leave us 135 feet of this road at the front where there's a home, an individual, driveway turns off of. So we'll still have 135 feet of this road, but the remainder, the last 1,130 feet will be closed and will become private. The property owner that's requested this is going to hang a gate. There are no structures up there. It's just open land. I think you have.
Did he pay for that, or we just giving it to him?
Yes, we're just giving it to them. Yep.
How far is that from their main gate?
It's probably, I don't know, 800 feet maybe?
Maybe at the most. I
At the
would say.
most, probably.
Yeah. It's actually coming off the knob headed down towards Amable Road.
He pulled the map up.
Oh, okay.
I can see it now, thank you.
Yeah. You should have had a simple map in your
Yeah, I should have,
in your packet right there, didn't you?
I should have did it.
Oriented till I
Yeah.
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 Sorry about that.
got your.
Everybody's supposed to know where it's at. Sorry about that.
Also, by closing that will help on the illegal dumping.
Oh, I think that's the primary reason they wanted to close it. There's been dead animals and tires and mattresses and just lots of complaints.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Second. And we have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We'll send that to full commission.
Question, you mentioned the gate, and this is about another gate.
Okay.
How long does a gate have to be across a county road before the people will lose ownership of what's beyond the gate? Like if the gate's put up and it's closed, is there a threat of ownership transferring to the adjacent property since the road is not open?
Well, I don't know the exact answer. That's something that I would have to ask our county attorney about. And I think there's a lot of, precedent that's been set in the past. But there should not be a gate across a road that is in our road book. And if you know of one, you need to let me know of that because I have to take it down. It can't be there. You cannot block a public right of way.
So the county landfill road is not in your road book?
The county landfill road,
Is not in your road book?
some of the landfill road is in our road book, yes.
From Jefferson Pike to the gate for Rutherford County landfill, that stretch is county road. Once you get to the landfill, in is actually landfill driveway.
So it's landfill property.
After you get to our gate, it's landfill property.
Now I'm talking about the new gate.
The new gate is across the county road, yes.
It's across the county road.
Yes.
I wasn't aware of
I
that.
have concerns about that.
I wasn't aware of that.
But it is
How long has the new gate, quote unquote, been there?
several days,
Huh,
weeks,
Been there longer than that.
months.
really?
Yeah, it's been there almost a year.
Well, that's something I will have to get to the bottom of. I wasn't aware that existed.
Makes me nervous.
Yeah. Well, it's not, it can't be there. Now, if the property owners beyond that gate collectively decide that they want that to become a private road, regardless of who those property owners are, if they collectively decide, it could be, in the case of the one that you just saw, there was one property owner, but it could be more than one. They could all collectively decide that they want that road closed, want it to become a private road. We can do that, but one property owner in a group of property owners can't.
So that's one property owner on both sides and then the county at the very end.
So if someone wants to complete a waiver of damages like you just saw, then we can do that. It'll go to the road board and it will come here. Beyond that, the gate will have to probably be removed, most likely.
It's just my personal opinion, it needs to be removed.
I'll check into it, sure will.
Yeah, why don't you two offline get to the specifics of,
Yeah. Yeah, I'll check into it, find out what's going on.
I tend to agree with Commissioner Piercy on that. That could cost us a lot of headaches.
That's right.
I will find out the specifics.
what else you got?
That's it for me.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask
More
a
questions?
question?
Yes, you may.
I just want to catch up on some stuff. Number one, the land for the new schools. The $3 million you just said you had to allocate for the new school that's going to open up in 2021. You know what I'm talking about?
Plainview?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how's that going?
Slower than I anticipated. We are looking forward, we've raised our hand up to do this, so I'm looking forward to getting started on the actual construction. We've been in the plans development stage, and now we've moved on to a point that we have to get the appraisals done and then get these packets mailed out, which will include the appraisals to these partial owners that will be affected by this. And then they have a certain period of time to accept or reject our offer. And then, so it's going slow. The right-of-way acquisition is taking a lot longer. The process for that is taking a lot longer than I anticipated.
Have you sent out bids for the roads with subcontractors, or are you just doing it all
No.
yourself?
Yeah, we're trying to do this one ourselves.
Self-performing.
And then my last question is, and I don't know if you can answer this, the land is being proposed on 96th, where the county is thinking about school board is buying it from the city. Okay, have they reached out to you on anything?
The Board of Education?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Spurlock and Trey Lee did ask me about that property, and I told them that's not on a county road. That's on state highway, and I don't have any control over that. So beyond that, all I can offer is an opinion,
So
And
any
the opinion is-
improvements will probably be state done and property owner
Well,
funded.
they will have to, happen inside of a state-controlled right-of-way. So it's not something that the county would do or could do, County Highway Department.
Chairman Harris, you might want to save that question for Doug DeMonsi, and I say that because, and I know Doug may be not wanting to speak for Mike Hughes, but I know Mike Hughes has been involved in discussion with the school board about that piece of property.
Just making sure we're reaching out to everybody. That's why I'm asking.
Well, I can't speak for everyone. I can only speak for me and the highway department, but I feel like that the people at the Board of Education have done a pretty good job of communicating with me as of late.
Good.
And that would be, for the most part, Mr. Lee, Trey Lee, and Mr. Spurlock when he feels it's necessary. So hopefully that correcting itself.
Since that was brought up, I've got a question about that property, since you're familiar with it, is will there have to be major work done similar to what's going on at Plainview for this to have a school put in that location?
Well, I can't, I could only speculate. 96 as it exists, we're all fairly familiar with what we're talking about. It's a two-lane state highway. And then you have Veterans Parkway that's near that location. And then you have the fact that there has been a lot of talk about the improvements that are slated to happen on Highway 96 and where those improvements are going to start, and if this is going to, if this or some development that's proposed out there that doesn't involve the school is going to alter the plan of where that those 96 improvements will, the first phase of those. I don't know all that. I mean, I'm not at all those meetings. I just don't know. I'm not sure anybody does. But what improvements would be required to open that school is just not something I've really looked at.
And most of that right on the road frontage?
It is.
We're not talking about
It
all.
is. There's several thousand feet of road frontage associated with that property. So, just from being on all these committees and the commission and, over time, your involvement here, all you guys would make the same assumption I would. There would be turn lanes associated with it and all that kind of thing. But beyond that, I really haven't looked.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for the highway department? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Forever or?
For this month. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary,
Thank you.
and thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Yeah.
All right, Tanya?
Good evening.
Welcome back.
How's everybody? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, so January, we issued 346 building permits in January. 74 of those were single-family dwellings, up a little bit from both last month and last year, at this time last year, for a total revenue of $126,323. We did a total of 1,580 inspections with a little over 9,000 miles driven.
Questions for codes? All right, continue on.
All right, development tax. We collected a total of $342,000 between all 4 jurisdictions. And zoning enforcement, if nobody has any questions on development tax. Zoning enforcement, we had a total of 168 inspections last month.
Is that normal, or you?
Zoning enforcement? Zoning enforcement? Well, the weather's kind of kept us busy. The weather really hasn't gotten that bad. It's been fairly mild this winter, so we've stayed pretty steady the last couple of months in zoning enforcement.
All right, I'm looking at, I'm sorry, I'm still looking at development tax. Just for the record, the 2018-2019 revenue for development tax, which is $1,500, as we all brutally know, our take was right at $6,400,000. $430,000. So, you know, I want you all to remember that Superintendent Brooks, you know, said that just for this one new school that we talked about, he's going to need about $7 million. If we doubled our development tax, we obviously just can't arbitrarily do that. But if we doubled our development tax, that would only, in last year's numbers, that would have only got us $6.5 million extra. So you can see where we're way behind in terms of our infrastructure needs and monies. Just wanted to point that out again. Tanya, what else do you have for us?
That's it, that's all I've got.
All right.
Motion to approve?
Thank you. Need a second. We have a second.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you so
I
much.
got one question, I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry. One of the things that we're looking at, and I think you can help us with, is what he was talking about on our development tax, but there's also looking at another where it's $1 a square foot.
Oh, yeah,
And-
good question.
And what can we get for next meeting, what that would have been for 2018, for 2019?
The calendar year 2019?
Yeah, I'd like to see what it
Yeah,
was.
I guess our last full fiscal year.
Okay, so I can do that for Rutherford County. What I'm not going to be able to get you figures for is the city of Murfreesboro and the town of Smyrna and Laverne, unless they can quickly provide me reports of square footages in
Okay.
each of those houses. I can do it, I can pull it from my records. And I'll reach out to the city of Murfreesboro and town of Smyrna and Laverne. Because if you're looking at $1 square foot, I'm going to need the square footage, but not just
Yeah.
the number of single-family dwellings that were issued, but the square footage of each of those. And then, of course, apartments come into play. Apartments are split up based on square footage, anywhere from about 700 square feet to 1,100 square feet, and the ratio of the smaller square footage versus the larger square footage. So we would have to include those. Currently, we collect $1,500 per unit in an apartment complex. So a 700 square foot apartment
Pays the
is
same
going
as
to cut that in half. We're only going to be able to collect $700 on that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pros, but I'll try and get what information I can for next month.
Yeah, I'm curious to see that, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Yeah, and you can obviously see where we're going.
sure.
If we, in 2020, have a choice between one or the other, do we stay where we are? Or do we
Gotcha.
take a gamble and go for the $1 a square foot?
I mean, the average square footage of the average single-family dwelling has increased in the last, 10 years. It used to be, in the low 2000s, high teens, and now it's in the high twos, 2,800. So there's going to be some gain there, but there's also a whole lot of apartments. A
Yeah,
lot of
apartments will be
apartments.
the one that'll.
It is. It's
Yeah.
going to knock it off a little bit. But I'll come up with.
So
I'll
our
try and get what
average
I
square
can.
foot is 2,200,
No, it used to be at 22. Right now, it's about 26, 27.
our average square foot is.
Yeah, we don't.
Is it based on living space, 1,500 square foot living space?
No, 1,500 square foot is flat fee per single-family dwelling. What I'm saying is if we do it $1 per square foot, the average square foot of the average single-family dwelling has went up in the last 10 to 15 years. It used to be in the low, sorry?
Yeah, 27.
It used to be in the low twos. The average square foot of a single-family dwelling was about 2,000. Now it's more like 26.
So doing it by the square foot, we get nothing for the lot, correct?
We'd get nothing for the lot. It would be
Just to make this-
strictly $1 a square foot.
Just to make this real interesting, could you figure out what percentage of last year's homes were 1,500 and under?
Square foot?
Yes.
I can do that pretty easily because there wasn't very many. Yeah.
Well, one thing, what she'd be able to give us is if all the money was collected, but that's not the way it would happen. It would happen is you get half on the front end, and you don't get the other half until after it closes.
Closes.
Or whenever
I'm not even sure that we
buys
get,
it.
I'm not even sure that we get the first half on the front end. I think
Yeah.
it's all, none of it's
I
due
think
until the house is
100% is on the
complete,
back end.
right?
Certificate of.
And then you'd have to,
I thought it was 50 up front and 50 at the end.
On the current development,
on the-
that's correct.
Yeah,
On the
on the
current.
$1
Yeah.
a square foot, the risk is, we don't get that until you get your occupancy permit. So if the
And then
developer,
they've got 90 days,
Yeah.
or they've got a
So-
certain amount of time to pay that. It doesn't, it's not automatic.
So once they get a final, then the clock starts ticking.
Correct.
so that's the huge negative to that.
And then what happens if they don't pay it?
Or go broke.
Right, then you've got to find, some sort of collection, means of collection, and
Which means in 2009, we would have took a bath.
Yeah,
probably,
yeah.
yeah.
So, but we need that information.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Douglas?
Good evening, everyone. All right, let's get this so it's oriented right. So you have three items for your consideration tonight. First will be the available lot inventory, which is, all three of these will be on your iPads. The available lot inventory as of January of this year was 998. Again, those are recorded lots, ready to have building permits pulled during normal business hours, of course. That has gone down a little bit from December of 19. Went down about 35 lots. The month before that, it was up about down to 1,000. It's been fluctuating a little bit. But over the last year or so, we have noticed a general trend upward. There's a lot of building activity going on, but there's a lot of plats that have been recorded. So that's really what the difference has been. Like today, I signed a plat a little earlier today, as a matter of fact, for about 40 or so lots, if I remember right. So depending on the building activity, that number may tick up a little bit as one goes up, one goes down, but we're still seeing pretty healthy activity as far as building activity goes, as Tanya just reported on.
So we kind of get an idea of how many actual lots have gone in from our tax that we just talked about, our development tax. So
Yes.
that's the part that's coming off.
Right.
But that
Right.
also throws in apartments.
Well, this right here wouldn't, the number I'm talking about,
Right,
that
that's
was.
just lots.
Right, right.
I'm just trying to figure out, well, how many homes are actually going up per month? This is a rolling number.
Right.
We're seeing. So are 30 a month going out, or 200 a month being built, or, the kind of rollover that we're getting is what I was looking for.
I see. And that, sorry.
Tanya's numbers, she's probably doing 70, 80 permits per month.
Right.
Probably less than that.
No,
Somewhere around there, 78 seems like the average. And
It depends, and for us, it depends on the month. Some months we'll see, this past month, we didn't have as many of the larger plats recorded. We had several plats, but a lot of them were like little resubs, 1 or 2 lot deals. This list here tracks anything 3 lots or greater. That's what we're looking at, the bigger subdivisions.
So you're saying approximately 70, just as an average, would 70 a month be a pretty good average?
yeah, we've had 95 in August and 101 in October, and the rest of them have been right around 70.
and these 998 have all paid $750
Yes,
to the coffers,
Right.
per lot, right?
but not the other 750 permits.
Correct. That other 750 comes with her numbers.
They're rolling off about 70 a month, 70 to 80.
Ish.
I may be interrupting, but that's.
No, that's what I want to hear, so yeah.
And Commissioner Dodd, they may not all be subdivision lots. If it's a tract lot, we collect the entire $1,500 at the time the permit's issued. So only the subdivision lots, we collect $750, because the first $750 was collected at, when the plat was signed.
Yeah,
Right.
before recording.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing it.
Right.
So if a big apartment complex, that would be per lot, so you're looking at, that number could be 40 or 50 for just that one apartment?
Yeah, if an apartment complex, and Tanya, correct me if I'm wrong, if an apartment complex comes and say has 200 apartments, they're paying $1,500 per unit.
Times 2.
And you're counting it on each one a lot?
Well, no, yeah, this list that you have here wouldn't count apartments.
That's not-
This is just the unincorporated county. This isn't taking into account anything that the city does.
Those are single-family dwellings?
These are all single-family dwellings that you're seeing on this list. That's correct. Yeah, so the apartment complexes, that would be reflected more in Tanya's numbers for the development tax collections. That would not be reflected in this list.
And I have another question, and I'm sorry, because I just don't know. But out of 100% of units that you get permits on, including all apartments, out of 100%, what's the percentage, just estimate, that is apartments?
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know that number off the top of my head, and I wouldn't even want to try and guess it for you. I can get you those numbers, but not something I don't know.
Yeah, because that'd be a huge, something to know on if we were looking at the $1 square foot,
Right.
just to see how much it is. It's, you know, I know it's a lot, I just don't know, is it 30% or?
I can tell you that the majority of single-family dwellings that we issue a development tax on for the cities of Murfreesboro and Smyrna, not so much Laverne, are all apartment complexes. They do very little single-family. There's just no room to build single-family dwellings anymore in the city. So we do a lot fewer of those than we do apartments.
And Commissioner, every spike we see in the development tax, if you look at average, there's a spike.
It's an
It's an
apartment.
apartment
Sure.
rental line.
Yes, it is.
So
Well, I
that
just know
money
that-
floods in when it occurs.
Because if we did the $1 square foot and look at that, that'd kill us. Because apartments are 700 to 1,100 square foot.
Well, one thing while you're kicking these numbers around, you say you're bringing in 70 new houses per month. In 10 months, that's 700 houses, and that's 2 kids average per house. That's 1,400 students per month, or per year, well, in 10 months. So there's a school and a quarter, school and a half. Depending on whether it's a middle school or high school, it can be anywhere from 40 to 70 to 90 million.
Apartment complex ratio is probably the same. So as far as student.
Well, I think I've just read it, 2 per is just statistical average. That holds true. I don't have those facts, but that's
The last
what I
2
read.
years, we've averaged 1,000 kids a year.
It'll be interesting when we get the updated census data after they take the 2020 census to get the updated numbers. I mean, there are some, trends and things we can look at, but we haven't, of course, it'll be another year or so before we get all that, but it'll be interesting to see how that all fleshes out, get that updated data.
1,000 to 1,100 kids per year added to the school roll is the number I've seen since I've been a commissioner. It's running that 1,100 a year or so. 2.5%'s been consistent for, Mr. Odom's numbers showed us 2.5%'s been consistent for 20-something years.
No, because I've seen it for 3.5
Oh,
to
I'm talking about
4%.
just the average, yeah,
Oh,
3 to 4.
okay, maybe average. but
And that average stays consistent, and of course, it's 2.5% of a growing number. There's definitely been the spikes, but
Prior to 2008, it was 14 and 15 and 1,600 students. And then even through the 2008, 2009, we were still right at 1,000 children coming into the system, and it seems to be growing as the economy is flourishing. So we may even be seeing 12, 13, 1,400 students coming to our system before it's over with.
which kind of supports the two, I guess,
two students, kids per household.
Yes, sir.
Which means people are coming for a lot of reasons, a lot of good reasons. And we'll talk about that later. All right, Doug, what else you got?
Have a rezoning request to discuss with you. This is, now this one was actually pretty straightforward. There were actually 2 that were considered at the Planning Commission's January meeting just a couple weeks back, but only one of them is going to be going forward. The other one kind of backed off for now. The one that is going before you is located on Butler Drive, which is, of course, near, it runs between South Church Street in the city and Joby Jackson, right near the interchange. This property is fairly close to the interchange. The applicant would like to zone the property light industrial. It's actually, when you look at the maps on the agenda packets, it's immediately to the north of property that was rezoned by the county last year to light industrial, so this is a similar classification. The city has also annexed property immediately to the west, and it's zoned what's called general industrial. That's a category, as I understand, it's kind of between light and heavy industrial in the city. but you can see that that area is kind of turning into more of what I'd call an industrial park type of area. No real uses, no development plans or anything for this property. It's more of a speculative request. You can see the report that will be presented to you next week. Access would be from Butler Drive, of course. Right away, the fronts of the properties was annexed into the city of Murfreesboro earlier this year, so any access permits or anything that if this property were to develop, they would have to work with the city of Murfreesboro as far as access to Butler Drive. Light industrially zoned properties would have to install a type 3 buffer adjacent to any residentially zoned properties. That would primarily be on the northern buffer, or northern boundary, excuse me. And of course, it would have to meet our performance standards as well. There wasn't very much discussion on this application at all. The Planning Commission did recommend approval by a unanimous vote. So that'll be coming before you at next Thursday's meeting. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have on that.
Mr. Chairman, why would they not seek annexation?
Well, the sewer is not just right there currently. There are plans to extend the sewer to that area, but not currently. We just reviewed a site plan for property right to the south of that. Well, they'll be on septic as well. Just because, again, the sewer's not there. It's probably going to be a little while before the sewer gets there, and it's going to be costly to get over there. So that's the main reason at this point.
I mean, I like the idea that of the county receiving some of the benefits of industrial tax, 40% tax, and so always losing that to annexation.
Well,
and
yeah, the property assessment, you still don't, you won't lose that.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
that's
Now,
true.
what you
They
would
have
lose
less
after,
taxes.
right, if it's sales tax, now, but even then, the annexation laws, and I don't have that on rough top, I think it's 10 years, maybe 15, that if a property is annexed that is a business, the sales tax would continue going to the county for it's either 10 or 15-year period, and then after that, those taxes would then go to the city, so you wouldn't lose it right off the bat. But the property tax would just go into the
Sure.
county
Yeah,
coffers as usual.
misinterpret that.
Looks like there's 3 or 4, maybe 5 residential structures around that. Did you have any comments from those folks?
No, sir. No, there was no one spoke at the public hearing.
Okay.
It's a great location for industrial.
Well, and just up when you look at the map that we have, if you look at the aerial map, just a little bit, you see a big white roof building. That's zoned light industrial. Well, that's Kenny Pipe. I mean, honestly, it's only a matter of time before all of these properties go that same route.
Any additional questions? Need a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Doug, you got one more piece?
Yes, one more item. I'm happy to present to you tonight. This is a professional services contract between the county and the GNRC, Greater Nashville Regional Council, for services to update the county's comprehensive plan and the county's long-range long-range transportation plan. It would be kind of one document. The long-range transportation plan element would be part of the comprehensive plan. This is something that we've been talking about for the last couple of years. We were looking at it originally as just an update to the long-range transportation plan. The last time that plan was updated was back in comprehensively at least, was back in 2004. There was a small amendment that was made to it back in 2002, a little tweak that was tweaked to so the cities and the county's plans matched. But beyond that, that's the last time that plan has been updated. The comprehensive plan that we're under now was adopted back in 2011. Generally, for long-range plans like this, you like to see updates every 5 years or so. So it's been a little bit longer, so it's timely at this point, especially the long-range transportation plan. There's been a lot of growth, a lot of things happening. It's needing of an update. So we actually have money in our budget this year to start this process. You can see on the first page of that, and you'll see the term of the contract. When we started looking at this contract, we thought it might be starting at the beginning of the year. Of course, that will be changed. That's not a major issue there. But the payment total payment would be $220,000. This would be, of course, invoiced over time, not as lump sum. We budgeted in this year's fiscal year budget $105,000, and what the plan would be is to go ahead and do a PO on that amount if this is approved, and then the next fiscal year's budget, we would do the balance of that. So the 115 would be the remaining balance of that. So at this point, I'm not asking for money because any additional money, because the money's already in our budget. So we are just asking for the recommendation of the committee to move this forward to budget and then approval by the full county commission so that we can begin this process. And I'll be happy to answer any questions on this.
Remind me of the scope of services again, because this really got my attention when I first read it. So-
Well, if you look at the document, there's an appendix to this, an exhibit. It's got scope of services. Of course, he's got the tasks laid out, project work planning and advanced coordination, community visioning, policy framework to plan development and drafting. It's kind of just kind of the rough overview at this point. A lot of this is going to be, the minutia will be fleshed out as we go, when we see which direction we're going to go with the plan and everything, but we need the input before we can really do that.
But you did
So-
say a traffic study?
Part of it would be the long-range transportation plan, yes, sir.
Okay.
So Doug, in your 3-minute elevator speech, in your own words, what would be, in your vision, the deliverable, and what would the planning department, the planning commission, Public Works do with this document?
Well, the comprehensive plan serves as kind of our guide for what we want to see the community moving forward. That'll kind of set the recommendations, and then any policy recommendations, maybe we make ordinance amendments and things like that. We make all of our decisions based on the comprehensive plan. When we did the first plan that we had back in, was adopted in 2011, we actually based the recommendations of our zoning ordinance, how we did our zoning map, off of what the recommendations were of the comprehensive plan. I would anticipate that continuing. I've had some discussions with Michael Skipper, who's the executive director of the GNRC. When we did our last comprehensive plan, it was mostly land use focused, because we knew we needed a new zoning ordinance, and that was the priority. So now that we've got that part of it taken care of, land use obviously is a big part of this, but we could also look at other factors as well to help us make decisions on land use policy moving forward.
You said that was in 2007 or 2004?
The long-range transportation plan was 2004. The comprehensive plan was adopted in 2011.
So about every 5 years, you got to do this?
Well, you don't have to, but it keeps it more current if you do it every 5. That's kind of what we see in the planning circles for major plans like this. You like to see them updated every 5 years or so. It doesn't have to be, 5 years, boom, you have to do it. And if things happen where conditions change so rapidly, you may have to do an update before that. But for what we're seeing, the long-range plan needs to be updated, especially considering that both Smyrna and Murfreesboro have updated their long-range transportation plans within the last few years. And we want to be consistent with what's on their plans as well. We can use the plan. The plan kind of works in conjunction with the long-range transportation plan, because when the comprehensive plan makes its recommendations for growth patterns and different things like that, the long-range transportation plan kind of follows along with that. So we know we want to see growth in these areas. Okay, these are where the roads need to be. And when we have an idea of where the roads need to be, that helps us as planners make decisions as far as, okay, we see a development in this area. Does it need to dedicate right away for a new route or something like that? We've run into that before where, there's an example of a subdivision we were looking at now that it didn't pass, but just as an example, there was a development off of Rucker Road that our current long-range transportation plan had a kind of an extension of Rucker Road, a realignment, and they built that into their plans. So that gives us that ability to help them reserve these routes for these types of development.
Doug, who did the plan in 2011 and also in 2004? Who was the group?
The group that did 2004, Mr. T, I'm not sure. Of course, that was before
Wasn't
my time.
GNRC?
No, sir, it wasn't. The group that did it in 2011, our comprehensive plan, it was the Parsons Brinkerhoff group. There was actually, they worked on the comprehensive plan, but they had a couple of other consultants with them.
Was Reagan Smith part of it?
Yes, Reagan Smith did the subdivision regulations, and then Bill Terry, who's one of the planning gurus of the state, he handled the zoning ordinance update.
So it won't be any of those folks?
No, sir, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be those folks. This would be an interlocal agreement between GNRC and the county. Now, GNRC has a lot of resources that they can tap into, and they work with a lot of these different firms. I don't anticipate us having to do a major rewrite of any of our ordinances. That doesn't mean they won't need to be tweaked, but as far as our development ordinances, our zoning and our subdivision regulations, they're in a lot better place than they were when we went through this process a few years ago.
To still do community meetings?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And get input?
Yes.
Before any of this was?
Yes, that's part of this, yes, sir. We would definitely want that.
Well, the reason I say that, I remember when we were doing these road plans, they had 2 or 3 in the Smyrna area, and they moved around. They had one in Walker Hill, and they had one at Las Casas. And
Yes, sir.
20, 30 people, most of them. They finally got over to Kittrell, and there was 300 people there. My folks are interested in this. That's why I'm interested in it too.
Yes.
But
Yeah, no, I mean, in order for a plan like this to work, you have to have the buy-in, the community buy-in. And I know I've talked with Michael, he wants to have a concerted effort also to speak with the planning commission and the county commission as well to get you all's buy-in, because you'll be the ones ultimately adopting these plans. So if you don't have buy-in to them, then there's no point in trying to move forward with them.
the thing that comes to my mind is the school growth and, like Highway 99, for instance. I forget the long-range plan there, but of course, I don't remember what is it, 840 going up through there. I don't recall that in our law. I mean, that was part of the state's plan. It had been
Right.
worked out. But I don't recall anything on 99.
No, it's 99 is supposed to be 5-lane all the way out eventually to Eagleville. Now, when there are portions of that, of course, there's a portion under construction right now, the portion from the interstate out to Cason Lane, because I drive by that a lot, so I hit that a lot. There's 2 other phases of that. There's the phase from the interstate back to Franklin Road, Highway 96, and then there's a portion between Cason Lane and Veterans Parkway. So those are future phases that they're coming, but they're right now they're hot and heavy in the first phase they're working on.
What did it cost us last time to do that plan?
That plan the last time was $250,000. And that, quite frankly, that was quite the deal because we updated, of course, we created a comprehensive plan when we didn't have one because that was the first time we ever had a plan. And then we completely updated the zoning ordinance. That was a complete overhaul. And the subdivision regulations was an update. It wasn't a complete overhaul, but it was an update. So we got all 3 of those documents for $250,000, which the timing of that, that was right in the middle of the recession and everything. A lot of the consultants, I think, were just, they needed the work. So we benefited from that, from those circumstances, as far as that goes.
So if Mr. Skipper comes to this committee or full commission, we could ask him to, in his vision, as he gets comfortable with the county, of possibilities of, like Commissioner P said, of potential school zones or commercial node zones or industry zones or company headquarter corridors. We could ask him to be keeping an eye out for things like that
Yes,
would
sir.
make sense.
Yes, we could.
Along 840.
Yeah, and we would want as much input as this as we could get. And when we had a steering committee set last time, Mr. Blair, I believe you were on the steering committee the last time we had our comprehensive plan. At the time, you were on the school board, so we wanted their involvement into this. So
We don't need to bid these out.
professional services are handled a little bit differently than, say, like purchasing of products and things like that. So, and plus, we pay membership fees into GNRC. So again, this would be handled as a member local agreement. And Mayor Ketchum, you may have additional comment on that.
I serve on that board. I'm on the finance committee for GNRC, so there's, Becky, how many counties make up GNRC?
13 counties and
13
52
counties.
cities.
And 52 cities make up GNRC, so we all pay membership dues to that. And we meet once a month in Nashville, and we instruct Michael and his team. Like Becky works for GNRC, but she handles solid waste. They've got transportation folks that are on that team as well. So the input is for the greater Nashville area because roads just don't stop at the county line. They've got to be connected with the whole planning process. So.
Any more questions for Doug? Doug is seeking a motion to, for this committee to approve and send this to budget for, Doug is looking for a motion for our recommendation for approval and to send this to budget.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Okay. All those in favor?
You have to do roll call.
Roll call on the month.
I guess we're spending money, so.
Very good.
Commissioner Payne,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sharino,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Chairman Kush.
Yes.
Before you turn Doug loose, I've got I guess a silly question.
No, sir.
Okay.
Do you have any idea what percent of the county is not developed?
No, that's not a silly question, but off the top of my head. Now, when you say develop, let me ask a question to try to get a better idea what you mean. Let's, for the sake of let's say you have a 100-acre farm that's got a single-family home, or not even a farm, just a 100-acre tract that has a single-family home. Would you consider that developed if it has a home on it?
No. Let me rephrase my question. Do you have any idea how much acreage is left that homes can be built on in development?
I don't have a number. I will say there are quite a few larger tracts out there now. The issues, of course, you're going to run into are, despite what the zoning may allow, is it possible to really get that many units onto the property? You can have 100 acres of land if you only have enough for 2 or 3 perk sites for soil. You know, the zoning could allow 300 units. It's not going to matter. You're going to get 3. So. But to give you an idea as far as how much is out there that's just completely vacant, I mean, that's something we could probably, have our GIS planner work on, get you a number for. But off the top of my head, I couldn't begin to tell you what that might be.
Any way you could tell us how many, which you may not can tonight, but you probably look back, and this may be a question for Tanya, how many lots have been approved in 19 for PUD?
I can get you that number, not tonight, like you said, but as far as how many lots we approved as PUDs in 2019,
Yes.
that would be pretty easy to find out.
Not that many.
No, there were some that came forward that weren't approved. I can think of one in particular that had about 400 lots or so that did not pass. So, but no, that wouldn't be hard to get you that number. I could probably figure that out pretty early tomorrow.
So not necessarily the 900 and something lots that's available now, they probably wouldn't approved in 19.
No,
They may have
no,
been in
those-
18 or 17.
Right, if you look at that list, you can see on the list when the plat was recorded. That list goes all the way back to 2009. So, yeah.
Where I'm headed with this, and you may laugh me out of the room, which I could care less, but we keep doing PUDs, and the other night at the full commission, we had a little discussion about how many lots there would have been without the PUD versus how many there would have been with the PUD.
Right.
Now, I know we're probably getting more impact fee off the PUD because you've got more lots on a small parcel of land, but how does that equal out compared to the number of children that will come to, say, 100 homes versus 350 homes, to the amount of money we're having to give the school board to build schools to house them? To me, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Now, this may be part of it I can't see.
Well, I had this discussion with someone that came in the office the other day. From a land use standpoint, it's probably more efficient to approve the smaller lots. Because if, let's just say the number of people are going to come regardless, if you're going to have, let's just throw a number, if you're going to have 1,000 people out there, you need 1,000 homes. If they're doing it on 15,000 square foot lots, that's going to take more land than if you do it on the lots that are only like 7,000 or 8,000. The number of people are going to come, if you leave that static, that's not changing. Just from a general standpoint of efficiency, it makes more sense to make them a little more compact, that they don't have to go to as much infrastructure and things like that. But, that's just, again, a discussion I had with somebody. So even if we weren't, I guess the point I'm trying to make, even if you just said, you know what, we're not going to do any more PUDs, those people are still coming. And they have to
If
live.
they don't have a place to live.
Well, true, but At the same time, does
Unless-
that have other spillover impacts at
Unless
that
Mr.
point?
Ketchum's gonna make some tent cities out here somewhere.
Well, I think that if I think the houses are being built because people are coming, so I think that if houses are built, nobody's coming, they would lay vacant and stop building. I think that's apropos to the conversation.
You said what now?
You're saying that if they don't build the houses, well, they won't come.
That's right, they won't have a
I
place to
think,
live.
true, but I think people are coming, therefore houses are being built.
You're saying they're being built because the people are coming?
Correct.
Right, yeah.
That's, again, that I may be speaking into it and don't need to, so.
Mayor, I think Commissioner Piercy brings up a good question, and I've often thought about it because we see all these numbers from GNRC, we see numbers from the Chamber of Commerce, we see numbers from CUD about our anticipated growth. They say that we should be doubling by 2035, 2040. We'll be the fourth largest after this next census county. By 2050, we'll be larger than Knox County. So if all these people continue to come, going back to his question, Doug, is there enough property? Because it's not like Florida, okay? It's not just sand, it's all the geotech underneath, it's all limestone, there's not enough perk sites. Is there enough vacant property to sustain us being the third largest county in the state? Is there enough property to build enough homes, or are we just going to start going up with apartments?
When I was on planning, and it's been, I guess, 12 years now since I've been on planning, but there's a couple things that pop out to me, and my personal opinion on this. I live in the rural areas, and I like it rural, and want it to stay that way. And part of what you're seeing with this growth, if you do like my wife's home county in Iowa and require each house to be on 5 acres of land, which is a requirement in that county, or like, I guess, Williamson at one time, or at least Florida there, had 5 acres. You're basically going to use up all your property for single-family homes and dwellings. Now, what I personally would rather see, because I won't see the green space and open fields, is I'd rather see housing clumped together with smaller lots and more density, and leave these farms and open lands undeveloped. If that's kind of a choice you make. Now, you asked about people moving here and if we stop building. They did that in Florida in one city, and what happened is the developers started building condos and apartments out the years, and they were having to build 2 or 3 schools a year. So what will happen if you put a brake on developing out in the county, you're going to see huge apartments start going up, which we're seeing that already, but you're going to see more. Well, right, in the
Make it up
cities.
somewhere else.
Yeah. Don't you think so? I mean, that's my opinion.
Well, it's very evident that growth does not sustain itself, so what's the answer?
I agree with you.
You know, we can't keep adding it to the tax rate. And, at the rate it's going now, we don't have any choice, because you see your impact fees, it's going nowhere, more or less.
We can't put a chain link fence across I-24 and stop it.
No, but we could regulate it. If we can regulate a PUD, why can't we regulate 1 acre lots?
Well, I think.
I'm not saying stop it, but regulate it. You can regulate a PUD to how you want to manage it, and I'll regulate 1 acre lots the same way. We don't have to build it all out in the next 20 years. I'd like my grandson to have a place to play ball someday. Maybe a green field. I don't know. I don't understand our push to go, 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 go. Slow it down. Why not?
I don't have a problem with that myself. You're talking to the choir here, so.
We'll be long gone before long. There'll be other people sitting here in our places, and they'll look, well, I don't know where you could put a house. Them boys is up here last field, Old County. So, that's my concern. I think it could be slowed down.
Well, there's
without breaking the home builders and killing the economy. Draw it up some. I had I'll shut up in a minute. But I had a guy call me last week, He wants to buy roughly 70 acres. He wants to put 350 homes on it. And he's got a real irritated neighbor. It's me. You know, we don't want that down there where we are. We've got farmland left and whatever. But anyway, you know, and he could go the other way, build bigger lots, build nicer homes or upper scale end homes and come out close to the same money. The smaller houses will make him more because he can get more houses. But still, you know, we'll be looking at the Betty Ford Road, we'll be looking at the Jefferson Pike. They're both little pig path roads. They can't stand the traffic. So there's us another expense. We'll have to redo the roads. Betty Ford Road is a county road, I'm pretty sure. But the other's a state road. You know, every time we turn around on growth, we're shooting ourselves in the foot, and that's, I'd like to see us slow it up somehow.
I don't disagree with you. To go back to that point, this county has been zoned so that you can put residential housing anywhere in this county, or at least it was at one time. And we've done some rezoning where we've got some actual farm zoning now, where we didn't in the past. But basically, anybody that wants to come out and build has got the right to do that already by our zoning ordinances, and we can't stop that. Now, we can maybe not let them have the density that they're asking for with a PUD, but we do not have the authority to say, no, you can't build on that 70 acres there. They could put whatever the zoning
Yeah.
for that particular
Whatever
area,
that goes-
they can do that.
And that goes back to, you know, every property's going to be different. You know, if somebody wants to put 300 houses on 70 acres, you know, how much soil do they have? You know, you're not going to, even in a perfect world, if it's zoned RM, which is 3 units per acre, you could get about 210 in a perfect world. That's not going to happen. I mean, most of the subdivisions we see, just what I call conventionally zoned, you're looking at somewhere between 1 and 1.5 units per acre, even if it's zoned for 3 units an acre. When you take into account the soils and roads, easements, drainage, stuff like that, you will not get that kind of density. You just can't. It's not possible anywhere, not just here. So, and incidentally, when we did our comprehensive plan back in 2011, we actually had recommendations of portions of the county to zone them 1 unit per 5 acres.
I think Stan Vault started that, didn't he?
I don't remember
He was a
exactly,
commissioner.
but we ended up changing that
Yep.
because of the outcry that we got over
Well,
that.
you'll get outcry on it.
Oh, yeah, we will, yeah, and we realize that. But, you know, it's the whole, you know, the farmer, you know, what we heard a lot of, and we hear coming up, if we go through this process, which I'm hoping we are, we'll get a lot of, you know, my farm is my 401k. You know, they want to farm the property, when they're done, they want to be able to sell the property and make a profit. I don't fault them for that, but that's the battle you fight. You know, how do you balance that?
Property rights.
Yeah, exactly.
Commissioner Blair?
Do you know how many acres are on the green belt here in the county?
Off the top of my head, no, sir, I don't. Again, that's something I could probably find out, just calling the assessor.
I mean, I was just kind of curious, since that's the 401k for so many
Right.
of our farmers. I'm just curious how many acres are still out there.
It's pretty, I would say pretty substantial, but, because like I said, especially when you start looking out in more rural areas, I mean, there's a lot of open tracks that are out there. Now, how long are they going to stay that way? You know, that's,
Sure.
I guess, the $1 million question.
The other thing that we continue to forget to talk about when we're building new buildings, we already have 155 trailer classrooms in use presently. So, you know, you add that to the bricks and mortar that are already there and that we need to build. But I was on the school board for 12 years, and we were never able to eat into that. We had 147, and then there was a thing at John Coleman where we took some of the trailers because the federal program was not going to be utilizing. They were going to move into the old John Coleman structure, and so we didn't buy them. We kind of inherited them. And we haven't bought a trailer classroom in quite a while, but
20 years.
But with the way we're growing, you know, without bricks and mortar, what's the other alternative? And it breaks my heart to think of children being in these trailers.
Do y'all keep that in mind at all?
as far as,
Like, you were sitting there, I was listening to you, and I'm listening to him, where you could put 80 houses in a parcel, or you could put 160. Do y'all ever look at that, it says, I think it's 1.8 kids per household. I believe it's in that area, somewhere around there, close to 2, we'll say 2. So, do you ever look like, does that ever come in your decision at all?
it comes up in discussion, and the information that you see on your iPads, the lot inventory, the zoning, especially plan developments, that information is shared with the school board officials, well, with the essential staff, I should say. So they're aware of those things. Of course, now we don't control school zones ourselves, so, we're dependent upon, whatever they say these schools are zoned for. That's really the purview of the school board. But it comes up in discussion. I won't say I don't think about it, but I don't think we've ever seen something denied on the fact that the school zone may be overcrowded. I've never, since my time here with the county, I haven't seen that.
School boards never raised their hand and said, wow, that's gonna do a number on.
Well, that's because everything is pretty much at capacity right now anyway. They just rezoned some students out of Wilson Elementary into some room at Walter Hill. So, there's, if there is any room, they're trying to move students around presently to try to fill those spaces up. We just opened up Rockville High School that's built for 2,000 students, but it opened up with 1,756 children. So in 2, maybe 3 years max, they'll be at capacity. So.
Doug, got a question for you. When I was on planning, and I know y'all still do this, once a year, you've got some mandatory training that the planning commissioners have to go to. Usually ours was at MTSU. I don't know what that costs, but I wish that could be offered to all the commissioners. And because there's a lot of really innovative ideas that come out. And Commissioner Piercy got me to thinking about one that I'd heard about, and was transfer of development rights. And I think you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Basically, if I own a farm and I want to keep farming and I don't want to develop it, I could actually sell my development rights to somebody that wanted higher density in another location in the county. But that property that I own, and from then on, could not be developed. You see what I'm talking about? So there's, and that, I don't know if we do that anywhere in the state of Tennessee, but there are other places in the
Yeah,
country.
they do. There's some farms in Rutherford County like that.
Does the state buy some, is there conservation?
State bought, yep.
So there's
Well,
similar-
there is, now, that's, what you're talking about is a little bit, the conservation.
different,
easements.
yeah.
That's a little bit different.
Yeah, it doesn't buy
because-
density.
Right, there's
You
a-
pull it off the development roll.
Yeah, there's a farm off of Armstrong Valley Road, Sanders
Sanders
Farm,
Place.
that did that, where basically it's a land trust, it's a land conservation. Now, they just basically said, we're not gonna develop our farm in perpetuity. There was no transfer of development rights for that. But as far as an actual TDR program in the state, I'm not familiar with any. That doesn't mean they're not out there, but I've not been made aware of them personally.
Well, my question was, can you offer that training to this group or?
Well,
any
we do,
of
yeah,
commissioners?
the MTSU training you're referring to, they quit doing that quite a while back. Now, something we do, and Mike can certainly speak to that as well, we usually 3 or 4 times a year will offer our planning commission before our day meeting, like at 7:30. We do it right before the planning commission meeting at 7:30 in the morning, and we get people in to speak on a variety of topics. We have people there doing things on stormwater. We've had people there on doing things on wetlands. We've had legal training. We do several things because it's easier for the planning commission to get there early than it is to stay later a lot of the times. So, we'd be more than happy to make that available to any of you all.
Well, I'd recommend that you let us know that schedule so we
Sure.
can partake if we're able.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when we schedule our next session, which we haven't yet, but when we schedule the next one, I'll definitely let the entire county commission know if you're interested. Love to have you.
Thank you.
Anything else for Doug? Good stuff. Doug, anything else?
No, sir, I'm finished.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, that concludes our show for this. All right, Mac, why don't you and your group step up to the Table.
I brought company.
Of course, most of you remember Becky Caldwell. Sitting next to her is Jeff Postel. He's with Triad, and they're our consultant firm for our landfill. So we've got Jeff here this evening to speak about doing some gas migration issues, and Becky's here to look at an RFI, where y'all can look and start to head that direction. And I've got my regular report and a budget amendment. So which direction do you want to start with?
You pick.
Jeff, you want to go first?
Let's do your report first, because there's gonna be a bunch of questions, I think.
On my
Are you
report?
okay? Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I'll usually.
All right, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
If I get to go last, usually I get what I want. I'm going first, I won't get it. All right, our landfill, of course, is still doing just what we're doing, is brush and tires. So there's not a lot of activity this time of year. There's not a whole lot now. Jeff and I were out there last Friday, wasn't it? And met with TDEC and was looking at the gas migration issues, and we put some vents on it and things like that. She wanted to see all that. So she was really pleased with what we have accomplished so far. Any questions on the landfill?
Did we not just have a discussion with Republic that we could no longer burn vents in the near future at our last meeting?
Well,
It's coming.
yeah, it's probably coming in the future, but right now it's just venting off. We don't have any, originally we put flares on, and those flares you couldn't buy parts for anymore, and then we can't find any drawings to know how deep they are or anything else, so we just, and there is some gas escapement. I mean, when we were out there Friday, you could get it in the sunlight just right, and you could see the vapor coming off of it. Is that what you're asking?
Well, my comment was that we were told that we wouldn't be able to burn it anymore. I didn't know how you're going to get rid of it. You know,
Well,
cap it and pipe it. And follow it.
Underground collection, I think is what EPA's,
That's kind of the direction that we may wind up having to go in the future. But what we're looking at right now is see if our gas issue is getting much better, and it's going to get into what Jeff's going to speak about. But throughout the years, it's trending downward. But the state is wanting us to make that trend happen a little more quickly than it's been happening naturally.
Drill some more holes.
Yeah, that may be it. Any other on the landfill? Convenience centers are still just as busy as they have been. Build it and they will come. They're coming whether we build it or not. You were talking about population and some numbers. The average, of course, averages can get you a little bit of trouble, but Rutherford County Solid Waste, what we deal with, has averaged 3.03% increase per year, every year for the past 17 years. That's over a 45% increase. Now, that's including population coming in. So what's keeping it from being higher is recycling. And we don't take brush like we used to years ago. We've limited the amount of construction demolition waste that we take, those type of things. I'll throw it out there, and it's something that most people don't want to hear. You want to make them stop coming, raise your taxes and cut your services. They'll quit coming as quickly.
How many
That's not what
years
you want
did
to
you say that 45% increase in cover?
It's actually the 17 years, so it's over 45%. When I first did, it was 15 years, which was 45%.
The media would love to quote you on the front page, I'm sure.
I'm sure they would. But
So if we did what you said, how much litter would be on the side of our roads?
litter is a big problem. The mayor and I have talked about that earlier today as well. Our problem is our residents are severely spoiled. And the perception of trash is free. Really, truly not free, but that's the perception. So as we go down this road that we're traveling today, and don't know where we're going to get to and what direction we're going to be when we get there, but it's going to cost a lot more than it does today for each individual resident generated trash. So is everybody willing to pay? No, they're not. So, they're going to try to find ways to get rid of it. Two instances, both of them happened in Laverne this week, and 2 days apart. Lady called, she was at the Laverne Convenience Center with a U-Haul moving van and had a load of furniture to get rid of. We don't take those type vehicles in our centers. So where should it go? Middle Point landfill. She said, well, do I have to pay for it that way? I said, I tell you what, if you'll bring it to my office, I'll help you unload it right here. Where's your office? I said, 1220 West College Street. No, I don't want to drive that far. Okay. 2 days later, exact same thing, not the same load, but as a guy, Lynn Laverne. He was wanting to get rid of the furniture from his house and go to Davidson County and pick it up from his mother's house. He wouldn't drive to my office to get rid of it either. They're not going to go out of their way. I mean, but we gave them an option. They just didn't want to take that option.
Find some vacant place to dump it.
Yeah. So, and I don't want to steal your thunder. You going to talk about that litter law?
I was going to bring it up under other business.
Okay. But, to help curb that problem, there's some laws out there that can help with it if we want to adopt those or use those or whatever what that process is.
Well, I had got a couple emails, and I don't know how to answer their question. Where do you take refrigerators and freezers?
You can take those to one of our convenience centers out in the county, and you will need to bring assistance with you to put them over into our construction style container. You cannot just push it out on the ground. It needs to be completely free of all food. You can leave the doors intact and the Freon system intact.
So you don't have to drain the Freon?
No, because you're not going to drain it right anyway, so just let us have it.
Well, are there not? I know there was, at least up to last year, there's a commercial place here in town that you can take it to, and you'll get $5 or $6 for the washer, dryer.
Got to drain the Freon.
For the metal content.
Right, for the metal. So there's other options.
But most of them won't take the refrigerator from you.
Well, I'm just throwing out there are places to get rid of this where it doesn't cost you, if you don't mind hauling it over there, so you could possibly even make a couple bucks off of them.
And we've got one vendor that we use for metal, and they charge us $15 for each refrigerated unit. Freezer, refrigerator, air conditioner, anything like that, because they capture the Freon out of it. We don't have a facility to do that. We don't have the manpower to do it. So we pay $15 per unit.
And they have to be licensed to do it.
Yes, they are.
But you told Mr. Harris he could take it to any of the convenience stores.
Yes, sir. We'll take it.
Free of charge.
Yes, sir.
For now.
Yeah.
So
when
we take we take it to you, and then you pay somebody $15 to drain it?
Yeah.
I don't just.
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
All right, if I didn't take it from you, what are you going to do with it? I would hope you would do the
I
right
don't
thing.
have no problem taking it,
And
but I
paying
think
the-
you should pay me $15 for
Charge me $15.
charge them $15. I did say I didn't say we. I think, is that something that we can discuss? Because, I mean, if somebody's going, why do I want to go in the hole when I'm doing them a favor?
We're going to hold on a whole lot of things.
Well, I know,
So
but that
where
way
you
we
want to
can-
stop that going in the hole?
Well, I
I mean,
think
y'all were talking about development tax. You're going to hold on that already.
Yeah, but we don't have development taxes because of somebody else stopping us. This is not.
Right.
We can control this.
We can. All right, so how do you want to work it? Do you want to try to collect money at the center? Do you want them to have to come by the office and pay for it up front? I mean, there's a lot of logistics that you're going to have to deal with to make that work. Our Haley Road operation currently, we charge $5 per 20 pounds for televisions and monitors, and we don't charge for anything else. We actually pay 33 cents a pound for televisions and monitors, and we pay 15 cents a pound for copy machines and fax machines and some of those other items. Have a tractor trailer load of electronics that we ship out, which is one almost every week. 18,000 pounds is what we would normally send on a tractor trailer load. We will pay somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,500 to recycle that load. So we're.
I mean,
Shout if you want.
Listen, I think that if somebody brings a refrigerator or freezer or any Freon capacity, I think that the convenience center should not let them put it in the thing unless they pay.
Then you go ahead.
and then they can turn around and leave. And then we come up to you about litter, litter law, so.
Well, I think all this is going to come together after we do the RFI. We'll give a presentation in just a minute about the educational piece, because we've said it over and over and over again, is that people in Rutherford County, they don't have a clue. He just said it a minute ago. They think that it's free. And I've told everybody that at some point in time, it's going to be another utility bill like it is anywhere else in the country. Everybody's going to have to start paying. It's not free. We're having to pay. I write a check for $300,000 to take off our tires. He sends me the invoice and I have to sign it. $300,000, $59,000 for glass. But we pay somebody to take our glass, and then whatever it is on electronics. We're paying people to take it. We've got to get to the point where people are going to have to start paying a fee to dispose of it. And otherwise, keep that TV for another year or so.
Other communities are paying for garbage in the same way.
Yeah.
So as you pay for glass and tires, they also have a line item for municipal solid
And
waste.
see, we're already into the budget process. We haven't met with the mayor to present those and ask those questions yet, but we'll be finished with that by March.
That's right.
Our electronic contract comes up for bid in August. We're going to do a budget amendment here on tires. That comes up for bid in August. Our contract for our private company that works on our compactors and all that, and paints our equipment to keep us from having to buy so many new ones, we repair those. That contract's coming up. So I'm fairly confident all those prices are going to be much higher when we get a new contract, but the timing of it kind of stinks because we're going to have to put a budget number in place 4 months early.
The other side of this coin, of course, he's going to be addressing this later. We put a fee for you to dump your TV at Haley Road. And a lot of people don't do that. They dump it over on my road. And your road.
That's free.
Yeah, because it's
For
free.
free?
For free. And if you do that for refrigerators, I'll get a few refrigerators free also, along with the gas tanks and tires and rims and wheels and other garbage, washing machines. But when you start upping these fees, you don't have somebody out there scouting around and keeping an eye on people. You're going to see the rural areas suffer, and then we're going to have to get people to come out and pick it up. I don't know, how many TVs you picking up a month now?
A bunch. We don't keep you out of them. We just pick them up and drop them off by the Haley Road on the way through. We run the litter crews. We have in our budget for 2 full-time litter crew drivers and a part-time driver. We have had 2. We've never been able to have the third, the part-time. And the workhouse hired one of my drivers, which I was glad he got to go. It was more money, and he was well qualified, and he's going to make them a great employee. Now we're down to 1 litter crew driver, covering a little less than 1,000 road miles a year. So it's hard to keep up with that. And it's just, it's been hard to hire people. Now, to hire the guy, any of you ever coached youth league football sports? Think of that mentality. That's what you got to use to be a litter crew guy. You got your inmates act just like those young children. So you can't holler at them or anything else. You just got to nurture them along. I don't have that mentality. That's not me. I'd be fussing at them. Any other questions on the convenience center side?
Where are you on your remodeling revision on you've got a couple that have been modified, Leanna's one.
We've got all the silk fencing, the stormwater control issues in place. The Murfreesboro Fire, Rutherford County Fire, and Laverne Fire and Rescue trained there last week. They've got some really neat toys too. I mean, they've got some stuff that could be fun to play with. But they put a lot of holes in the structure. If it weren't for the weather, we'd probably be in the process of taking those buildings down and getting the site prep ready. We still have to put out for bids for the electrical work, the plumbing work, the building of the actual structures and that type of stuff. So,
have you got an estimate on when you'd like to have that open?
We were hoping to have been far past where we are now, but I was hoping to have it done by Christmas. Of course, we didn't make that, so I'm hoping we're ready for Independence Day.
Okay.
And then some people was asking about Rockville. I'd rather finish one before we start another.
So Leanna's first?
Yes, it's in progress.
All right, thank you. Any other questions regarding the reports? Otherwise, we need a motion to approve the reports.
Motion to approve.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
We'll need to do a budget amendment.
All right, carry on.
It's been really hard to hire people. We finally hired the drivers that we needed, so we've got more trucks on the street. And then in and out of the landfill with more trucks creates more flats. So we have almost spent our entire budget for this year. So we're going to need to increase that by $45,000 to get us through the rest of the budget year, and that will be coming out of our solid waste fund balance.
Now, are these to purchase new tires or retreads, or are these to dispose of tires?
No, this is the purchase. We put new tires on the steer tires, and we run retreads on the rears.
Okay.
You get on state contract.
We go out for bid on them, and sometimes we're better than state contract.
This number will get you to end of fiscal year?
We've been averaging $10,000 a month is the average. We've got roughly 4 months left, so I put in an extra $5,000 in case our average is off.
Okay. All right.
But we've got some tires that cost almost $500 a piece.
Any questions? Otherwise, we'll need a roll call. Or a motion to approve first, I guess.
So moved.
And a second. We have a second. Roll call.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sharino,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Chairman Kush.
Yes. All right, back.
All right, Jeff, you want to talk about our landfill gas migration?
So, I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Last month, we talked in this committee, and we talked about doing core samples on our landfill. And that's when we reached out and we met with Jeff. We don't have to put this out to bid because he's already contracted with the county, and his company is, as an independent, is prepared to come in and do the core samples. So he'll brief you today on what his anticipated cost would be. But we feel like before we put out this, we're going to put out the RFI, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but give time for them to get this done, and before somebody turns in an RFP, after the RFI goes out, they're going to need this information. And I think that this commission is committed to doing the core samples in a fair and equitable way, so they will understand if some company wants to come in and do reclamation on our old landfill, he will provide that data. So Jeff, go ahead.
Jeff, may I ask, before you get started, may I ask a question that really dovetails to the mayor's comment just now? One of the potential players that is interested in giving a price that I received an email from is in the business of pulling gas from the landfill, okay? And one of the main concerns was, you know, we may be able to, and I'm going to talk in round numbers, they may be able to reduce the landfill size by, say, 40%, but that depends on how much dirt we've used to cap and cover every day. So that being said, that's a valuable piece of information. Would the core samples, I would assume, give you an estimate, maybe, of course, you know, it depends on where you drill and how lucky you are, but it could be a representative samples of perhaps how much soil we've used for cover. Is there a way to break down percentage based on your core samples of how much dirt we've actually used versus waste? Yeah.
Yes.
Is that a fair question?
Yes, a fair question.
Okay.
Well, first of all, let me back up.
What we're planning on doing is, the investigation has a couple of purposes. One is we're kind of dovetailing this with our current landfill gas mitigation efforts. Basically, right now, all landfills, they generate methane. They've got to go out. Currently, we've got a series of vents, about 45 of them scattered across the landfill. You're supposed to maintain that gas on site and release it to the atmosphere. And what's happening is, in a couple of places, it's migrating a little bit outside the landfill boundary. Still on landfill property, but it's outside the footprint of the landfill. So we've got perimeter probes on the outside, and those probes are, the state requires them to be there, and we're required to monitor them on a quarterly basis. We go out there and monitor them, and if there's elevated levels, we're supposed to report those findings. For the past 8 years that we've been doing this, and Triad's only been involved about 8 years, there's always been some hits. Basically, county landfill kind of fits in with Middle Point landfill. They back up to each other. We've got a couple of probes in between the two, and there's always been hits. It's not a risk to anybody. There's not a receptor there, so the state has not really turned the screws on the county on this issue. They've asked for continual information over the years, and as we've gone on, they want this problem fixed. Okay, so we did some studies about a year or two ago to address that. They came back, they were pleased with the results and all, but they did ask that, hey, we want to know where this landfill gas is coming from, where in the fill it's coming from. And old county landfills such as this, a lot of the original information is either not there or questionable at best. And so basically what they've asked us to do is to investigate, okay? And what we can do to satisfy the state, but also give us a good idea of what's the cross-section of the landfill look like. So realistically, we've got a layer of clean soil on the top, and then we've got a mixture of waste and soil. So for a solid waste landfill, every day you're supposed to put a layer of soil 6 inches over the waste, and you're supposed to do that continually. So you may have areas in there that you may have a foot of waste and 3 feet of soil, or you may have 3 feet of waste and 6 inches of soil, so that you don't really know what you got. Typically, older landfills like this, it's going to be really hit or miss, because you're going to have some areas that may have 6 inches of waste and a whole lot of soil, just because the operators didn't know or didn't care. So you've got that waste soil mixture, and then underneath it, you've got some unknown amount of soil. And that's of particular interest, especially if somebody wants to reclaim the landfill. Soil is valuable, and especially for the next door neighbor. But then underneath that soil, you've of course got the limestone bedrock. So what we would be looking at doing is drilling through the waste, probably at about 5 locations on the landfill. You go through the waste, and we'll go with an isolation casing. And as you go down 10, 15 feet, you'll pull that out. There'll be a tube, and whatever was in there will come out. Hopefully we'll get 100% recovery of that soil. We'll have a geologist on site. We'll log it. We'll be able to tell, if let's say it's a 10-foot section and we get good recovery, we'll be able to say, hey, this first 4 feet of soil, we got 3 feet of waste, we got a foot of soil, and we'll just continue to do that. So we'll be continuously logging that soil, pushing that down until we get to where we think the bottom of the waste is.
we'll push down, and if we get along, where we think that the bottom of the landfill is, push down through that, and when we hit clay, and it looks like undisturbed clay, we'll push down a little bit further and set an isolation casing. And what we're trying to do there is to prevent, inside landfills, there's leachate. It's a liquid that's mixed with the waste, and it's normally highly contaminated. When we set that isolation casing in there, that will prevent leachate from going any deeper into the hole, because what you don't want to do is allow a pathway for that leachate to go down to the bedrock. And so once we set that isolation casing, we'll pull it up and then go with a smaller diameter tube that we'll push. And we'll push all the way down until we get to bedrock. And so what we're trying to do there is get an idea of how much waste, how much soil is mixed with that waste, and then get an idea of, okay, how thick is our soil between bedrock and the bottom of waste. So idea is that we'd space about 5 of those holes on the landfill cap, and then outside the landfill cap, we do probably 10 to 15 additional holes that should be a lot quicker. You won't have to do the isolation casing, and they're a whole lot less expensive. And the idea there is to get an idea of how thick the soil is. Now, when we close those holes out, we'll fill from bedrock to the bottom of the waste with a bentonite mixture, and basically be like concrete. Okay, so that no leachate can go down into the hole that we just created. And then from the bottom of the landfill up, we'll start filling it with a very permeable material, probably gravel, 57 stone, something like that. As we come up, then we'll insert probably be a 4-inch diameter PVC pipe that's perforated or slotted. And we'll bring that all the way to the top of the surface. We'll pack the top of the hole with clay to prevent any surface water from coming in. And we'll basically create a vent for the landfill gas to help migrate out of the landfill. So as this landfill, again, it's been closed for over 20 years. Generally, your methane generation curves, it peaks about 15, 20 years after closure and starts to decrease. Okay, so, and then at some point it just kind of stays constant. We should be on that tail end of that landfill gas generation rate. So, the county is not required to collect or burn the methane that's generated at that landfill. It's too small, and it was closed, before those regulations were in place. So again, purpose of it, find out, what's the soil waste mixture in the landfill cell, and also to find out, how much soil is underneath. And then as an added bonus, we're creating this landfill gas vent to help vent the methane from the landfill.
What is the relationship between gas generation and leachate generation?
Okay.
Does it taper off the same as the gas?
Leachate? With organics, it can. In our case, at the Rutherford County landfill, we've got one well that's a little bit problematic. We have hits of what's called volatile organic, VOCs. And we've got a couple of constituents that come up. And those VOCs are related to the landfill gas that's generated at the site. So if we're able to do a better job of removing the landfill gas, we hope that little bit of VOCs that we're detecting in that monitoring well, we're hoping that will be reduced. So, my hope is that we can locate one of these close enough to that monitoring well that will help relieve the landfill gas pressure that's impacting the groundwater that we're monitoring.
I have a question. About how deep are some of these bores going to be? or cores, whatever terminology?
Oh, that's one of the things that we don't have all of the answers to. That's one of the things what we'll be finding out is how deep's bedrock. But it'll be, in some places, from the information I've seen, in some places there's probably 80 feet of waste thickness in probably the deepest portions. And then underneath that, I don't know how much soil that we have underneath there. It may be 20, it may be 30 additional feet. Not sure.
There were 16 holes bored in 1997.
Okay. And he's got access to all that information?
I do.
Those were core samples, or they were just vents, or they core samples that became vents?
No, those
Just
were
core samples.
All right, so if I understood right, you're starting with like a 10-foot increment. You're going to pull that material in a sleeve. Your geologist will analyze. So you'll set that tube aside, and that'll be 0 to 10. Then you go back and do another 10.
From 10 to 20.
And then you piece that together. So you'll have a long 80, 100, whatever foot long geologic. Okay. And then I thought you said after that, the subsequent bores are of less importance.
A smaller diameter.
Smaller diameter. Okay.
Well, yeah, so again, we'll bring that, there'll be an isolation casing, it's basically a steel casing.
Okay.
That, if you imagine that the bottom of the landfill is clay.
Yeah.
And usually what's happening is leachate's being generated within the waste, it's migrating downward, it hits that clay, and then however it's sloped, that's where the leachate is going.
Right.
Okay? So what you don't want to do is drill a hole through here and create a sink for that. And so what we'll do, we'll set that isolation casing in there so that if there is any leachate in that area, and there may not be, it's going to migrate around it just for this temporary exploratory void. And again, these holes are only going to be open for about 1 day. It takes about 1 day to drill these holes.
But even though the rest of them are smaller, you're still taking geologic study of all of them.
That's correct.
Okay. So, and last question. So what happens on hole 3 when 60 feet down you hit Great Granny's old cast iron stove?
It'll go through it.
Does drilling stop, or do you think, oh man, I can't go any deeper because it's going to open up my leachate pool?
No, it'll go through it.
Okay.
We'll be able to drill through it.
All right.
5 holes in the footprint of the waste and 10 or 15 on the perimeter.
Correct.
And they're quicker and cheaper because you fill them differently and so
Correct.
forth. So why only 5? Because you're 16 plus the 5 are going to be all we need?
Cost.
It's mainly cost.
Well,
Going through the waste is much more expensive than going outside.
But getting into the waste is what we need.
That's the key factor though, right?
So is 5 enough to provide a proctor for whoever?
70 acres?
Landfill's a little less than 70 acres.
But you're going to use the data from the old 16.
Correct. And the data from the other 16, it does have the amount of waste. Again, that was done in '97 by another consultant, and the boring logs that are not there. It gives a summary. It tells you how much soil is on top, how much waste. And it'll give us the elevation at the top of the soil that's underneath the landfill. As far as I can tell, they didn't go to bedrock. So our data, when we match it with theirs, our hope is that we'll be able to get a bedrock surface map from them, and then we'll be able to use their data to figure out, okay, what's the volume of the soil underneath the waste. Okay. Now, to your question of is 5 holes enough? I don't know. It will be sufficient along with the '97 data to provide a good baseline. Now, will another potential buyer or interested party want to do additional holes? Probably so, but I'd rather it not be on your all's dime. You know, we can give them enough data that they can make a decision, and if they want to ask for more, I would put it on their dime. We need, I mean, in my opinion, from a technical standpoint on the venting issue, I think 5's going to be fine. 5 will be fine there. I also think that the 5 will give them enough information that anybody that's interested in bidding on that portion of the work, I think it'll give them enough information to know if it's feasible to do what they want to do.
On the 15 that are on the perimeter, you're not bending them and capping them and
No, sir.
like you were talking about on the 5.
That's
Okay.
correct. We're trying to keep those because they're not in waste and you're not going to do any good.
And they're generating data for another purpose. They're generating data for capturing runoff. I mean, so,
That data is basically, we're trying to get a really good idea of how much soil is out there on the site.
okay.
Because that's an important question to ask.
The first drill holes were done how many years ago?
1997.
Tell me with the math. 30?
23 years ago.
23 years ago. All right, so let me ask you. You're going to do 5 new in the solid waste. In the peak of the landfill, you're going to do, or the peak of the waste, you're going to do 5 new holes. I would assume you know the locations of the old drill holes.
We do.
I would assume you would not go in the same spot. However, I would think you would want to put one in a near vicinity to see how much the landfill has changed in 23 years. It's just me talking.
Right.
Not we, just me. Because I guess the reason would be if there's been a drastic change in 23 years by comparable located holes, that may skew your information of 5 new versus however many 23-year-old holes may skew your data.
Again, the 1997 data was done not by Rutherford County, it was done by an independent party. So we have the reports. I do not know if we have the XYZ coordinates for each of the holes. We have a map that shows them on a map. And they're about, if you scaled them off, they'd probably be 40 feet wide diameter.
Yeah.
So being able to align it perfectly would be very, very difficult. But can we get close? Certainly so. And yeah. No, I understand what you're saying.
I say that, but I think, okay, in 23 years, in a buried condition, what's really going to change other than decomposition? And does that really move the needle much? I don't know, but it was just a thought that goes through an engineer's head.
You're right. Well,
Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, one of the main questions that I see is that either the egg shape or the circle, however you want to say the 70 acres is on the landfill, is being able to have that cross-section of how much tonnage of trash / dirt is there. So you've got this cell, 70-acre cell. With that cross-section, you're going to be able to tell how many feet of dirt all the way through it to the bottom, and then what is trash. They're going to have to get that number to know how much trash and how much dirt is there, or that's going to be minute, and they're going to have to do more samples to cores to be able to get that cross-section of what's dirt, what's trash, and what's the outside perimeter points of the landfill itself. So if this sums that up, then I think we have enough for whoever's looking. But if we don't, then I guess they'll have to, like say, this committee and the commission have to decide whether they want to let whoever come back on there and do more samples to be able to get that. Because I don't think anybody would be able to give you an answer. I wouldn't want to give you an answer if I didn't know what that cross-section was
Right.
of what's trash and what's dirt.
Right. So Jeff, I said this last, I do this every month. I always say this is my last question, but it's not really my last question. Should we approve this and you go through your geologic findings and you go through your full report, I'm assuming that this report is now public record and you have to turn over the contents of this report to TDEC. Are you bound as a professional to turn this over to TDEC?
We will have to obtain TDEC's approval to actually drill through the waste. Okay. So, and what we would do is, basically make a request, say, hey, this is what we're planning to do. The purpose of this is and we would really just need to ask for permission for the holes that are going through waste, not the ones on the outside. And we can do whatever we want to on those. But for the ones on the waste, we make it with the understanding that those holes are going to be converted to vents. And it meets what they've been asking for further investigation. So that won't be a problem. They will ask for, a letter report saying, okay, what were the findings? And I can limit that letter report to the 5 wells, or the 5 holes that were done within the landfill.
I won't say anything else.
And they will probably be there to observe.
So if green goo starts bubbling out that has a 1,000-year life, and we all start running for radiation suits, they'll know.
Yes.
Okay.
Did we discuss the cost yet? Did I miss anything?
No, we haven't discussed it yet.
I don't want to jump to it.
Who did you say owned, do you own this company yourself? Or
I am a part owner in Triad, yes.
do you core drill around the whole U.S. or just local?
No, we are an engineering company. We're composed of engineers and geologists. We'll hire a driller that will come in to actually do the drilling. We don't do the drilling ourselves. We'll have the geologist there to do that. And that's common. There are a few firms out there that do both, but not many in Middle Tennessee.
TRI, capital A, capital D.
Yes, sir. Triad Environmental Consultants.
And who did you say owned the company?
Owned which company? Our company? We're a small business. There's 19 of us. We have 5 owners. I'm a minority owner.
Are you affiliated with Republic in any way?
No, we have we just gained Republic out in Nevada as a client. We are doing some air permitting with them and some groundwater monitoring with them. We're not doing, as far as I'm aware, we're not doing any engineering, and I don't work for that client.
So what's this going to cost us?
I've asked for a proposal from a drilling firm. Their cost plus our cost is about $60,000.
No, drill all the 5 holes and the other 15. So
yes.
And
do the report.
The cap, and that'll cap those 5 off and vent them and everything.
Yes.
So that's, what is that, lock and key, Steve?
Total all in?
So turnkey.
Mac, you got that in your budget?
We'll have to do a budget amendment for it, but yes.
Yeah. So it's not new money. So you can make a budget amendment.
When could you start?
The big thing is the weather. It needs to dry out a little bit. The unit, it'll either be a truck-mounted unit or a track-mounted unit, and you don't want to be slipping and sliding on the landfill cap.
Yeah.
Is What percentage is the 5 holes versus the other, and of the 60?
The 5, yeah, it is much. The 5 holes will be, it's probably closer to 40, 35, 40, in that range.
So, like 9,000 a hole, maybe?
Yeah. It's
For the
significant.
for the deep ones?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Now, if there's something that we're interested in doing and doing it timely, the next availability after tonight to do a budget amendment will be this time next month. It'll be not this coming commission meeting, but the following before that gets approved, before we have the budget amendment to do it.
Well, what I'm concerned with is one of the things that I want is whoever we try to do business with, if it's a private company, to take over the dump. That's how I feel about this. But there's other opportunities where that might not happen. So is 5 holes enough for you to make a assessment if we have to dig this up and fix it ourselves?
Yeah, I think it will be, and if not, we can always go back and put some more. But the part of this purpose is we've already put the vents on the old gas flares. And since our last testing result in late December, we're already seeing an improvement there. So if we can get 5 more holes in, we should show more improvement. So we can then look at how quickly the improvement is coming, and that will tell us if we need to do more to make it happen more quickly than what is happening now, or are we comfortable with riding it out for that, 4 to 10 years or whatever it is before most of it gets vented away.
Craig, I'm hearing that this effort is an effort to solve another problem. We're asking for data, what's in our landfill. You're trying to utilize prudently this expenditure to solve a venting problem, so we may want more holes. We're gonna have to ask for it or pay for it. So, am I hearing you right?
Yeah, we're trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
That's correct.
And see
And I want to own, do we want to own that report and have a greater amount of information, or we're self-determining? That's just a question I have.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, is 5 enough?
Yeah,
Because this thing can go in a bunch of directions.
Correct.
I mean, what I assume doesn't necessarily mean, I'd like to see somebody take the liability, take it off us. That's what I would like to see. But it might not go that direction. We might have to fix it. You already said that we had to fix this landfill, right? So if we got to fix it, well, then we got to know exactly what we're dealing with here.
Right. Now, when I first started, I started in '08. The assumption was our landfill has problems with leachate, and we're polluting the groundwater with leachate. And TDEC, that was kind of the way they were going and everything else, and we wound up going out for bid. TDEC wanted us to, and we wound up with Triad as the bidder. And we still have the same issues, but it's not a leachate issue, it's a gas migration issue.
Mr. Chairman, I think it was stated here tonight that the 5 holes will give enough data on the RFI that we're proposing here in a few minutes. So anybody who is interested will have enough data to make a bid when it comes to RFP. Why would, if one of these companies that wants more data, as Jeff said, let them use their money instead of ours, why do we want to put in another 10 holes ourselves when one of these companies may satisfy our needs after the RFP is received? Because in the RFP, we will have a sentence in there that we have the option to reject all bids. At that point in time, if we reject all those bids, then we can come back and spend our own money and decide to drill more holes and take care of the reclamation ourselves. But I can't urge you to make that recommendation right now of digging more holes. I think this will satisfy what we're trying to do here with the RFI. Am I correct?
I believe so.
Jeff, will that give you the cross-section you need to tell what amount? percentage of dirt versus trash. Is that what you're saying, that the
Yes.
5 should be enough to do that cross-section?
In using the 97 data along with this, we also have some boring logs from the monitoring wells that are already installed. We'll combine all that data and
Are those the 16 you've been talking about that were drilled before, or surveying?
there's our additional, we've got groundwater monitoring wells that encircle. And so we've got a good idea of how much soil is associated with those. Put everything together, we should be able to get a pretty good volume
Commissioner Dove?
estimate.
I'm still a little stuck on, and so bear with me, it would be enough, if somebody else came in and drilled as part of their proposal, they would own that data. They would know how many, they may discover there's more cubic yards of dirt and take advantage of that. And whereas if the more data we own, we may choose to hire excavators and do it ourselves. I just wonder, do we want to know more or less about it?
You're always welcome to, in any document like that, you can require them to give you the information.
And that's typically done.
As part of a contract, it is typically.
I mean, we do a
Because
lot
the
of,
97 data, we seem to not have much, maybe because it's old. We seem to have some, and you're like, well, we don't quite have that. Somebody else did it. We don't know who they were. We'll have more control with this.
correct. I mean,
You just state what you want.
in my line of work, it is common that if we are representing a buyer of a property and we go in and do soil sampling and groundwater sampling, one of the requirements is normally is we have to hand over those reports to the property owner so that they have access to all of the data.
You're comfortable with this limited information as being sufficient?
At this point, yeah.
I mean, if they had to turn the data over to us, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's-
there's no reason for us to
Expend
pay
it.
any more money
Yeah,
out.
yeah, I agree.
I mean, but they don't have any, there's nothing they can do, hide from
No
us.
secret.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely, it'd be ridiculous to drill more than 5.
Those water wells that surround the perimeter, were you involved in drilling those?
I was not.
One of them.
Well, I take that back, you're right. We did have to install one on the northern side. It's been 6, 7 years.
Isn't it customary to case the opening down to the bedrock?
It is.
Could you not measure the casing on those wells and tell how deep it is to bedrock all the way around that landfill?
Yes, that will be part of what we would be doing.
Not all of those wells go to bedrock.
Correct. Some of those are shallow wells and don't go to bedrock. But we take all of that data plus the data of what's underneath. And part of the question about the landfill is there's this belief that there may be this soil ridge that runs back through there, and that it was not excavated into. And so there's this belief that there may be a lot more soil underneath than everybody believes.
Is there not ground penetrating devices out there that could do this, or you?
Not in this case,
That's your
because
field.
that there's so much metal and so much everything else.
It would foul the zones.
Yeah, yeah.
So does our county landfill touch Republic,
Our property lines join.
but not the dump?
The two
So when you're
landfills do
doing the
not touch.
perimeter drilling, it's not right on the line,
It'll be close to their line.
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, we'll get fairly close. I mean,
If our landfill were permitted today, it would not be as close as it is. Neither one of them would be.
correct.
I'm just trying to figure out why Republic doesn't put perimeter drilling on theirs.
They do.
They do?
Yeah.
Will we not see that data?
Yeah, we can.
Well, they haven't filled in some of the cells that's adjacent to our property either, have they?
They're working on the last one right now.
Right.
Okay.
The last one in the back.
All right, so will you restate for the record, so we can turn this into a motion perhaps, what the cost is?
The
And what
cost-
our deliverable?
$60,000. And the deliverables we will install. 5 soil borings and vents through waste, approximately 15 borings around the perimeter. We will end up having a engineering report that documents the findings. As part of that, which will provide an estimate of the waste and the soil that is within the landfill.
And you need dry weather to start drilling?
That would be best.
Okay. And once the borings are complete, I mean, is that a week's worth of drilling? Or just give us an idea of
It takes a day to do the holes through the waste,
Okay.
and then the rest of them we'll probably get done in 2 to 3 days.
Now, you talking about a day per hole or a day for 5?
Yeah, a day per hole. So for the 5 holes, that's going to be a week. For everything else, it's going to be 2 to 3 days.
All right. And then once you have all that done, how long will it take to generate reports?
2 to 4 weeks.
Okay. So mid-April, something like that?
If, depending on when
Okay.
we get.
Yeah, if you start at the end of February? Okay.
Getting into rainy season.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just.
I think we're in the rainy season.
April, May,
Yeah.
June at the latest.
Yeah.
Got a report.
All right.
Right?
All right, you've heard the deliverables, you've heard the pricing. Do we have any more questions for Mac or Jeff?
You want to do a budget amendment tonight to fund the money for it, or you want to wait till next month?
We gotta get on it.
I would say why.
We gotta get
We
started.
I
don't
would
pay
say-
until we
You need to
get the
vote to
product.
do
do
it
we?
first.
Yeah,
Right, well, you're right, Steve, you're
yeah,
right.
I would say plow when it's wet. But, do we hear a motion, first of all, let's start with a motion to accept and proceed with the drilling.
I make a motion to accept and proceed with the drilling.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Will this need to be a roll call? Or will we just sending this budget? I guess either
To get
way.
the budget, yeah.
Well, it's going to be, this money's already tied to it,
Money's
60,000.
tied to it, yeah.
Budget's Thursday.
The reason I question you about who owns your company, a year and a half ago, this full commission voted to not let Republic Core Drill own the county landfill. So that's the reason I was questioning if you were affiliated with Republic.
None of our officers have any ownership or anything like that. None of us work.
Normally my questions have a purpose.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sharino,
Yes.
Chairman Kush.
Yes. So
That was to approve.
that was to approve. So we need to request this to go to budget, is that right, for approval?
We'll have to approve a budget amendment.
That's correct. Okay, okay.
You know, so if we want to move quickly, what I would request is let us have a budget amendment to pay Triad for what y'all just voted for $60,000.
That's what we'll do.
Anybody?
We can take care of that at budget. That's, you know, this committee wants to just forward it on, which we basically just did.
So you'll just need that amendment Thursday night?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that acceptable, Commissioner Chairman P, with you?
For back.
Unless
bring the
y'all,
budget to us.
yeah, I mean, we've got 3 budget committee members sitting here, so I mean, I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah. As long as we see the amendment from MAC
In writing?
on Thursday, and then at that point, have a conversation.
Only thing I want to point out, we've run through $280,000 tonight so far. I'm still counting.
So,
Yeah.
We already had Doug's 250.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just, maybe to clean things up, can we have a motion to move the budget amendment approval to, but the Public Works Committee moves this to budget for approval or request?
May I consider this? I make a motion that Solid Waste bring a budget amendment to the Budget Committee this week for this
that is supported by the Public Works Committee.
For this activity just passed by Public Works.
Okay. We have a second.
Second.
Do we need to roll call that as well? Or is that?
No.
Okay. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Jeff, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Rebecca, I know you just didn't come here to look pretty. Do you have something you'd like to say?
Well, this is the first pass at an RFI.
All
So
right.
this is one step further and one step
Let me say,
closer.
Mr. Chairman, so since the last meeting, we kind of tasked Becky to help. Mac has been involved, Steve and I, of putting all this language together. We kind of finished it up mid-afternoon yesterday. So this is, like Becky says, this is our first pass, so I would like for the committee to look at this RFI and let Becky take us through it. I know stipulation's already on, so I don't really worry about that, but I think this is important on this RFI, that we go through it, make additions, corrections, anything else. So I think I'm excited about this. This is much further down the road than we've ever been.
Fantastic. So Becky, I believe you then have the floor.
All right, I'm not gonna read it to you, but I'll describe it to you if y'all have questions along the way, or if you wanna stop me and say, hey, hold on, let me read that section, feel free to do so, please. One of the things that the mayor pointed out yesterday was he would really like to see a goal on there as the very first thing. So basically, we've said Rutherford County strives to be a state leader in residential integrated solid waste management. And that goes back to the conversations we've had that the state requires the county to manage residential solid waste. The purpose there in the next section is just a general paragraph about Rutherford County. While we all know there are some folks locally that will potentially put their response to the RFI on the table, we also have to remember there may be some folks we've never seen before. They've never been here before. So this gives them a snapshot of what the community looks like. In the center of the first page, you see the population. This is, to Commissioner Dodd's point earlier, 2 to 3% each year. So there's your between 2010 and 2045, there are your projected population numbers from 2025 to 2045 every 5 years. Obviously, there will be a census in 2020, and we can update that as those numbers come along. The last section of the first page basically is explaining what is done now or how it's done now. Rutherford County provides service through convenience centers. We did include the city of Murfreesboro because they are part of this county. Essentially, we've said where the landfill is located, how many convenience centers are there. There are other cities within the county, Eagleville, Laverne, Murfreesboro, Town of Smyrna. What the recyclable materials are. At the very bottom, you see the 2018 number, 44,618 tons of residential solid waste, with approximately 6,951 tons of that being from schools and county facilities. And now we're at the top of the second page. Explains the 2 household hazardous waste events annually. It explains the batteries, oil, paint, antifreeze, and electronics options, or how those are collected. And then the paragraph in the middle, in anticipation of the eventual closure of the Republic Services Middle Point landfill, Rutherford County, Tennessee wishes to identify the most efficient, effective, economically feasible, environmentally responsible, integrated solid waste system for their residential solid waste materials for the next 30 to 100 years. That's something y'all are obviously welcome to chime in on at any point, if you think that's too much, too little. And then the next paragraph basically is describing for any respondents, they may respond to any piece or all of this RFI. So basically what we're saying is if you as a company prefer to respond to this process or this function for this material, you can actually pick one function and one material. I want to collect food waste. I want to, all the way down to that. Yes, sir.
That previous paragraph basically is just saying, if you have an idea we haven't thought of, we welcome it.
Yes.
Is that basically that?
Yes.
Good.
And that was the whole point. We want to keep it, we want to give enough information that people understand what we're asking for, but we also want to keep it broad enough that if there's something out there that we haven't heard of or seen, if somebody's, got
All
some.
options are on the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So then we get into the scope. One of the questions that will need to be answered is, if you look at the area, the very last sentence in that paragraph right before the table of the Class 1 municipal solid waste landfill numbers, information is published with the intent to allow proposals for management of any or all residential solid waste generated within Rutherford County ranging between 45,000 and 325,000 tons each year. That's a huge spread.
Is that two?
Which page are you on there?
I'm on the second.
Bottom of page 2. All right, right before the table. Is that too broad a range?
Well,
Thank you.
the 45,000 is roughly what we're managing today.
Yeah.
The 325,000 is what's roughly in Rutherford County that's total. So that's what we've been talking about in before. How much are we going to manage? And we're talking about only residential waste. This is no commercial, no restaurants, no businesses, just residential waste.
But we don't really know, as far as Smyrna, Laverne, and Eagleville, with their private contractors, we don't really know where that residential trash is going. Is that correct?
That is a correct statement.
So,
Based on the state number of each person generates 1 ton of trash per year, roughly 325,000 residents. So that's where that number's coming from.
okay.
So you got 78 total. I don't understand where 325 comes from.
325 if you figure 1 ton per person per year, and your population is approximately 325,000 people. So
Yeah,
1
I
ton
see
per
that, I
person.
just don't, we don't show it going to the land, what you're doing.
This is the actual number. So in this, you're looking at the table at the bottom, right?
Yes.
So this is the actual numbers to give someone an idea of what Rutherford County actually collected and what the city of Murfreesboro actually collected.
So that's a guarantee. We own that much trash every year.
Between the city of Murfreesboro and the county, yes, sir.
That's convenience center and city.
And city of Murfreesboro.
City of Murfreesboro.
Yes,
Right.
residential.
Okay.
At the top of page 3, I need to number these pages too, I apologize. Basically, we're asking for any responses to include which of the functions. These are 6 different functions. So you see the top of the list is interactive community education. Basically, we're saying interactive community education is top priority, and regardless of any of the other decisions or any of the other options that are laid out there, community education is going to be a top priority. We listed several things: print materials, social media, special events. If there's one company that wants to focus on just classroom education, that's an option. If they want to come in as a public relations firm and do all of the public education, whatever that looks like, that's again leaving it open to people to do any or all. Collection, obviously, of curbside or convenience centers. The processing, we've attempted to include all types of waste to energy that we've either heard of or have heard from here. The et cetera does cover those that we don't really know about that are out there. Transportation, truck, train, or boat. There are other alternative transportation options besides just a truck. Disposal, and then there's your landfill reclamation is number 6, with a note that the county will provide results from landfill forcing. And then the next section rolls into what the materials are individually. So if you want to, which function are you going to propose for municipal solid waste, which is your residential household garbage, or food waste, which could be food rescue or food recovery. And that's just hitting some high points along the list. The list continues on the top of the next page. So you've got your municipal solid waste, you've got your organics, including treated wastewater sludge, which would come from the city of Murfreesboro. Recyclables, metals, your BOPA, which is your batteries, oil, paint, antifreeze, and electronics. There's your household hazardous waste. Problem waste, primarily those are going to be just materials that have to be handled special, whether it's medications or bulky items, furniture, mattresses, that type thing. And then your construction and demolition. I will go ahead and say that construction and demolition is typically not a residential waste stream. Typically, it's a commercial waste stream. However, right now, with the closure of several C&D landfills or the filling up of the landfill space where construction and demolition materials are typically disposed of, we're filling up Class 1 space with C&D materials. So all of a sudden, we're filling up space that typically could be used for household garbage. We're filling that up with the construction and demolition waste. So that is included for that purpose, to say, is there a solution or is there a recommendation for something in that realm that would, again, allow us to save some of our Class 1 space?
So we're asking them to address C&D.
If they want
And
to,
give us-
they can choose.
Okay.
They can choose. That's just an option on the list. The next table is basically the recyclables by material that Rutherford County has collected since 2015, 16, 17, and 18, the past 4 years. That gives someone an idea of what they're looking at that we actually control here in the county. As far as if they want to, if there's an idea to build a MRF, and what would those materials be, or what does the public education need to be for recyclables within the community. The top of the last page, and basically this is just general information. Did you say something? This is basically just general information of, all questions should be directed to, and the mayor identified Steve Sandlin as the contact person. There would be a time and a date as far as when you want the proposal or when you want the submittal to be turned in. You'll need to pick a selection method. What are you going to look at overall, or how are you going to pick which ones may or may not serve the purpose? And you may not know that right now until you actually see what those proposals look like, or what those responses look like. And then the timeline. So as people turn in responses to this RFI, what is the next step? How long can they expect to be between the end of this process and the next process? And what, basically to explain to them what the next step would be in the process.
You've mentioned the city of Murfreesboro a couple of times in here. Did you have any contact with Darren Gore or anybody at the city? Or did they have a chance to review your draft?
No, sir.
For comments? Do we think it would be wise to send a copy to Darren to have him review?
What I want to do, Mr. Chairman, is bring it, you all are decision makers, before I go to all the other 4 municipalities. I wanted approval here first, before we start shooting holes in it. It's this decision, and then I'll take it to Smyrna, Laverne, and Eagle.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Sorry.
If Murfreesboro chooses not to play, will that, on tonnage, will that not affect this entire picture? Wouldn't it kind of be advisable maybe to know if they were going to play or not before we beat our heads against these iPads making a decision?
Well, the indication I've gotten from the mayors collectively is that they want to participate.
And especially Murfreesboro.
Especially
because
Murfreesboro.
As we've already been demonstrated too, in several different things on different options, Rutherford County doesn't have enough trash or recycle to do this on their own feasibly. Murfreesboro doesn't either. So that makes sense for us to go together, and even together, we're still not quite enough volume to make things work the way they should, in a financial business type sense. So I'm like the mayor of all the discussions I've had with anybody in Murfreesboro. Yes, they're willing to try to team up on anything that they can agree on. Now, there may be some things that we disagree on how we get there, but we'll still have to just try to head that direction.
By ordinance, can we require all municipalities to participate?
We don't do ordinances, that'd be a resolution, but I'm not sure that we can't tell
No
the cities
binding
what to do.
authority?
The state says that the county is responsible for solid waste, residential solid waste management. And all of those cities are part of the county.
Okay, so we're good.
And to your point, just on the numbers from Murfreesboro, if someone were to look at the unincorporated area and there are residential subdivisions there that they want to say collection in that area may make sense. Where are they going to overlap with the city of Murfreesboro, or are they? Where are they going to, what does that look like from a logistic standpoint with routing and other things that would potentially be something a private company would look at?
Did you address, and I don't know if I'm getting the acronym correctly, the PLAS, the permanence? What it's
Should we do it as all municipalities?
PFAS, I'm sorry.
Not specifically, no.
Okay, I mean, those are permanent issues. How are they addressed?
Typically, the state would look at those through permitting, but I can get more detail on it if you want me to.
I'd like to know,
Okay.
since they're with us for eternity.
I kind of understand where Commissioner Piercy's coming from. If we have a company that wants to make a bid and you put it 45 to 325, which is pretty ambiguous, but if all the municipalities are in, and then all of a sudden 2 or 3 of them bail out, it could change. You see what I'm saying? So are we asking them to give us your bid based on all municipalities, all county?
It's the county, so it's the county population for residents.
Can any of the municipalities bail out on this, Mayor?
Apparently,
Well, the county, so let me use the city of Franklin and the city of Brentwood as examples. They're both in Williamson County, solely in Williamson County. The city of Franklin chose in the late 60s to go into the solid waste business. They went into the collection business and then further went to transfer station and otherwise. The city of Brentwood never started any service using city resources, and they've always said to their residents, you may choose a private company or you may use Williamson County convenience centers. So that's 2 of the extremes of a city offering curbside full service versus a city not necessarily using city resources to offer
Kinda like
any
we're doing
independent.
here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Kind of like Murfreesboro and Rutherford County, as well as the other cities within the county.
Okay,
And
so if I'm a hauler, if I want to pick up trash at the curb, and I own a bunch of trucks, and I call Steve, because Steve's name's the poor guy on this contact on page 5, and I say, Steve, I want to bid on this, but it says here on collection number 2, it's 2A, it says curbside. And I want to, am I quoting on the county as a whole? Am I quoting on incorporated, unincorporated? Am I quoting on the city, all the cities? What am I quoting on, Steve? I think
You're giving the quote.
I think we just said, I think, this is what I want, why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
That your answer to that bidder, potential bidder would be, you're quoting on the entire county, which includes all the cities. Is that what we just said?
That is correct. And so it's incumbent upon me to go and sit down with Mary Esther and with Shane and let them go back to the respective, and Jason, to all those cities, and they've got to run it before their council. We're moving in that direction. They, as leaders, have indicated to me that they're in, okay? You can't do curbside out in Las Casas.
Right.
There's no curbs, okay? So where the curbs are is where you're gonna have curbside recycling.
Yeah.
I talked to, we met with Waste Management yesterday. They have piqued their interest and they brought their regional guy in and they want to participate. And we even asked a question, would you have a problem in being located right next to Republic? No, not at all. So I think what we're saying here is through this draft, that anybody who wants to come, we're putting all options on top of the table. We're addressing the issues for our future waste. Everybody's going to have to participate. It's an exciting time when we're moving this direction. That we're actually going to be able to do something. And I think everybody wants to do it. I think if some company comes in and just says, we want to do composting, here's our bid on the RFP. It may be better than any of the other big boys. But what we have told all of those folks, that basically from what we're hearing, that most of the citizens we've talked to is they like composting, they like recycling. And beyond that, then here's the options.
Okay, I got a question.
Sure.
Okay, so a company comes in, they're gonna do the composting. Company comes in, they're gonna do the curbside recycling. A company comes in and they're gonna do the brush and the construction debris.
Sure.
Where are we gonna put it for them to come and get it? Or are they gonna run around all over the county and pick it up individually? What? Explain it to me.
We have given them the parameters of which they want to bid. It's up to them to bring in their RFP. We're giving them the information to quote. It's up to them to come back and say, we think that we're going to need, if we want to do transfer stations, we may need 3 or 4 locations to do transfer stations, or we may need to find a place to do composting and recycling. But we will have the determining last say of who we choose we want to do business with for the next 30, 100 years.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
We have how many convenience centers?
The Rutherford County has 14 convenience centers. We have one recycle-only center, which is Haley Road. The City of Murfreesboro has one convenience center.
Okay, so we have all these centers, and everybody's bringing their trash to those centers now. And what's happening to that trash once it gets to the center? It's being transferred someplace else, correct?
Right.
So don't we already have transfer centers?
Yeah.
In a way?
That's because state law requires that we have to do it.
Yeah.
County. Private companies can come into
The terminology is different. I understand exactly what you're saying. When you bring in the residential waste into the convenience center, they're throwing it into one of our open top containers or our compactor or whatever. One of our trucks, it could just as easily be a privately operated truck, comes in and picks that load up and hauls it to the landfill. That's what our operation is. The true transfer station is where one of our trucks would go dump it at a facility to be loaded on another larger truck and then hauled somewhere else.
I could see this playing out, maybe not needing 14, but several large convenient areas that could be used for that purpose.
Now, the state, so far, TDEC has not changed it. So there's 2 ways to calculate how many convenience centers you need. One is based on population. So many people, you need a convenience center.
But we're not going to be doing convenience centers, we're going to be doing transfer stations.
Well, no, we're going to be doing convenience centers anyway.
Yeah.
Because you're going to forget to put your trash out one day. Or you're going to have a sofa that you need to get rid of, and that curbside collector is not going to pick that up. So you're still going to need centers. Now, they may not be as busy as they are today. But, how many do you have or how many do you need? It's based on what your level of service is. Our level of service is the City of Murfreesboro has curbside collection, and we don't manage anything else. And nobody has a contract with any private hauler. There's a lot of private haulers that run in Smyrna, Laverne, and Eagle and out in the county. They're not contracted with any government. It's all private, individual contracts with residents. So those don't count. So, what are we going to manage? We're managing through the convenience center process now, and we're lucky enough that there's enough private industry out there and private individuals that are willing to pay for that. Now, if you put that together and put it out for bid, you can save those individuals a little bit of money because of densification. That truck is picking up every house along the street instead of one on this street and one on that street. those are some of the advantages is when you get it all integrated, which we're not integrated at all. But, to go back to what Commissioner Piercy was asking, you want food waste and you want to compost it. That's what you want to do. All right, how are you going to get that food waste from the restaurants or the residents to your facility? Is that something you want to do yourself, or are you going to need to partner with somebody else to do? So those are the type, if you've got a process, your processing is the composting, that's all you want to do, then you'll need a partner that actually brings that to you somehow.
This could get way too complicated.
It can.
There's a lot of moving parts.
And this is why it says you can choose, say, a curbside collection option, and here's the material you want to manage. Here's the function, and here's the material.
One thing I'm concerned with is anybody, we're saying anybody can bid. And I get that, but there's somehow, some place has got to be in here to where they are a qualified bidder.
Nice thing.
Well,
Because, it's like somebody came in here and offered to take all of our trash, turn it into some, and they didn't even have a facility, they didn't have nothing.
And I expect we'll have some of that.
I talked about you before we put this out, that there needs to be language in this that number one, you got to show references, you got to show that you have the wherewithal and the financial wherewithal in order to support and back up what you're proposing, because we don't want to go down that road and then all of a sudden they say, well, I can do this for so-and-so, and then they're bankrupt.
Go to the very last page is where the top left corner of D starts, that paragraph for each response.
Last page, second paragraph.
The bottom of the page where the D of draft starts.
Under selection method, the second paragraph.
Yes.
For each response include however many references you want from other public entities where your technologies are currently or have recently been used to manage similar volumes of residential waste.
Got it. What about finance? So, how are we going to, are they financially viable? This tells about references that are technologies. Am I missing something? Because if I am, please tell me. I'm just worried about people coming here bidding and financially they're not able to do this.
Should run a credit report on it.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying, something like that. I'm just trying to, I don't want us to go and spend 47 hours of doing this and then all of a sudden this guy,
Can we add submit financials?
You can
Full
yeah.
financial, Craig, to think of a
that's what I'm
criteria.
saying, that's what I'm saying. I just don't want, because a lot of those proposals you got, Mayor, were good. This one I wasn't on here, they're also pipe dreams.
Yeah.
It was like, there ain't no way they can afford to do this.
Well, there was one presentation, if we'd give them the money, then they would go get the loan from some.
Yeah,
We got to run a
Some folks.
DMV on these folks.
yeah.
There is no magic garbage machine.
Well, and the other thing that you got to think about too is once you get all this information, you get all your bidders to propose whatever, and then we got a decision to make. And then it's not going to happen tomorrow. Once you award that bid, they're going to have to buy the equipment, they're going to have to get a facility, they're going to have to do whatever it takes. It could be 6 or 8 months before any of it starts.
And if they're building a
If
facility.
you dealt with Republic Services or Waste Management, either one, and we put all the county out for bid, curbside collection, and, they won it, they don't have enough trucks in their fleet to start that tomorrow. They've got to buy the equipment, because that equipment they've got is already working somewhere else.
A composting facility or recycling, you're talking a year or two.
You've got a permit, location, permit, all of
Permitting,
that
yeah.
process.
So
I think we're supposed to say 2 to 3 years.
is that kind of your perception? Of course, Murfreesboro already has the curbside. And I'm trying to wrap my brain around, Mayor, the rural areas, Smyrna, Laverne, and Eagleville, because presently, as far as the other 3 municipalities, they're either utilizing the convenience center or they're using private haulers. Is there a way to work with those municipalities and say, hey, we need you not to, I don't think either of those 3 municipalities are going to be able to put together a solid waste curbside, but they could possibly,
Through an ordinance.
through an ordinance, make it mandatory
like
to
that sub-
utilize
A subdivision
somebody.
there in Laverne.
Lake Forest.
Lake Forest. It's the largest subdivision in the state of Tennessee. It's over 3,000 homes still going. You know, it's, they can pass an ordinance and saying everybody's got to participate.
So, in my perception would be for the free enterprise system that you would have, you might have several local haulers, but you're gonna have to choose somebody.
No, you don't have to choose one somebody. You could choose multiple somebody.
No, I'm talking about the residents. You know, maybe the city of Smyrna says, here's 4 viable contractors. You pick one to pick up your service. I don't know, is that possible?
You would be better served to take roughly 6,000 homes in a group. Automated collection, that's roughly a route week for one truck. And you would bid out in 6,000 groups, homes. And each bidder would bid on what they wanted. Then the lowest bidder normally would get it, but that way your small mom and pops, you haven't put them out of business. To take on Rutherford County with one of the big boys, they would struggle to get our service up and going very quickly.
They don't have the trucks to do that.
No, you know, to order a Mack front loader truck today, it's going to be almost 9 months before we actually get the truck.
And the cost of one front loader is what?
Almost $300,000.
The question that
All right,
keeps,
let me suggest this. Will you mail this draft to each of the Public Works members?
Rachel will do that tomorrow.
Okay.
Email?
Let's email. We can print it ourselves at home. I could print it at home.
Sure.
You guys are on your own. If you want I guess if you want a hard copy in your mailbox, ask Rachel to put a hard copy in your mailbox. And let me suggest that we diligently go through this, write our questions down, and then at a solid waste meeting on a Wednesday, we start tearing this apart with questions.
At this point, we don't have any scheduled, I don't think, do we?
We have one on the 19th.
19th.
We're about,
Is there an agenda for it, Mr. Chairman?
Is Doc coming for that one?
No, I still haven't heard from
okay. Well,
You may have passed on you.
him. Yes, sir.
would you like to hash this out on the 19th?
I'm going to be out of town that day. I prefer a different date, but it's up to the committee. That's my
I'm having
call.
surgery that day, so.
On the 19th of February?
The only, I'm looking at the county calendar, the 26th, which is also a Wednesday, is the last Wednesday of February.
I mean, I'm good on that.
I'll just have to make room for my walker or whatever.
Do we push the 19th and
Cancel.
not
Yeah, cancel the 19th and
push to the 26th?
move it to the 26th.
Since we don't have an agenda for the 19th with
Right.
gentlemen. Craig, does that work?
Is that acceptable?
Yeah, 26 is good for me. I just think we're gonna have to spend a lot of time on this, you know?
Well, that'll give you an extra week to go through this and
Because
make
I'd like to,
comments.
yeah.
Well, and I would say this, it's good to have a blank sheet. It's good to have options, but it's also not good to have all the options sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes too many options are not. It's a
This is a
balance.
wonderful template.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
very good.
All right.
It'll spur some real, I think, productive business on the 26th. Craig.
And that's the goal.
What time?
You can't go.
Yeah, 5:30.
5:30.
Yeah. All right, so we will not have a Public Works meeting on the 19th of February. We will move that to the 26th. We still have an item of business, and then we need to talk about our March meeting, needs to be rescheduled as well. So, Mac, I'm sorry,
No, you go ahead.
okay. Becky, do you have some additional stuff you want to share?
I think the mayor did.
Yes, the mayor does, for sure.
I doubt that.
Well, you can sit there. You can sit there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't take 8 minutes, I know, and keeping the time, but I've tasked Ashley, our PIO, and she's been working with MAC. We put together a little PSA, public service announcement that is now going out. I hope you've been able to see it. She sent it to all the commissioners. She's already got like 400 or 500 hits on it just since yesterday. But we have to start, as you saw here tonight in this draft, the number one priority is education. We've got to start educating the public here in Rutherford County how to start recycling. We've talked about trash being dumped on the side of the roads, etc., and I'll get into that in just a moment. But let me play this PSA if you haven't seen it. It's really good. Mac and Ashley made their cameo appearance.
Hey, Rutherford County. Remember when you were in school and you learned about the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle? Well, we have 3 new R's for you. Recycle Rutherford Right. Our citizens have taken a lot of initiative to do better on their recycling, but we can do a little bit more, and we want to give you a few tips to do things the right way.
For starters, what items are accepted by our facilities? Aluminum items to include beverage containers, clean and dry cardboard. Clear and colored glass, including clear beverage containers, food jars, and liquid, wine, or liquor bottles. Plastic food or beverage containers, shampoo bottles, medicine bottles, detergent bottles, and cleaning bottles. Mixed paper to include newspapers and magazines, brown paper bags, and printer paper of any color. Finally, we accept tin cans, metal lids, copper and steel, and aluminum. Items must be clean, dried, and bagless. Placing individual items in the recycling containers cuts down on sorting times at facilities. It also decreases the potential for a recycling load to be deemed contaminated, meaning it will just wind up at the landfill anyway. So what items are not accepted at our facilities? Food-contaminated aluminum or cardboard, wet cardboard, Pyrex dishes or other cookware, mirrors or window glass, plastic or wax-coated paper, food or candy wrappers, tissue paper or towels, plastic bags, styrofoam, oil or antifreeze bottles, pesticide or herbicide bottles. So now that you know what you can and can't recycle and the proper way to do it, we challenge you to recycle Rutherford Right.
So Ashley came up with this new Recycle Rutherford Right, the 3 R's, and so she came up with a new logo. She's going to get the PSA out to all the cities, to their PIOs, and we're going to start that educational process and getting people to recognize how to do it right, because all it takes is that one bag that you pulled out with all the empty water bottles in it. If the person throws in the bag with the empty water bottles, then the whole load is contaminated and it's all going to the landfill. So we've got to start that education first, and let's do it right. What I have given to you, and it's on your tablet also, is I'm suggesting to this committee and to the Fulton County Commission that we start implementing and getting tough on what's already in the code. Tennessee Annotated Code, I've put all these codes in front of you. And let's start finding. The last person that we had, Bart Smith, rest his soul, he used to do our wheel tax. He was our wheel tax officer, but he also would go digging through trash. If there was a bag of trash on the side of the road out in the county, he would dig through it and see if he could find anybody's name, and he would find them. We do now have an environmental court. Judge Eyeshot is our environmental judge. And I think if Rutherford County is going to get serious about it, and we're going to lead the state and how we're going to handle our waste, we need to start through education, and we also need to start making, having these fines levied on people for throwing out trash. You can see that use of fines and proceeds on the second page. It said fines collected shall go to the general fund. In the second bullet point, persons reporting information to a law officer, which all law officers can give fines and tickets and send them to environmental court. Then the person who actually sees them dumping can get $250 reward, and the reward money comes from those proceeds of those fines. It's time to get serious about it. It's time that Commissioner Blair, that we be bold in how Rutherford County addresses littering. I mean, it's, my wife and I picked up 2 bags of trash in a very short distance behind the battlefield this past weekend. And people just look at you and like, what are you doing out there? Picking up this trash, it's nasty. Our county is nasty and we need to get involved. We need to reach out to civic clubs. It's time to reactivate Adopt a Highway. There are other communities across the state still doing it. The TDOT will come in, they'll give you vests, our t-shirts, they'll give you gloves and a reflective vest and get out and do a 2-mile stretch of adopting a highway. We need to create that synergy of we're all going to focus on making this the cleanest county in the state. So reflect on these and see if there's any changes we can't go any less than what state law is, but if you want to go instead of a $50 fine, if you want to go to $150 or $500 fine, come back next month and let's talk about this. Let's get some teeth into these people that are just driving by and throwing out whatever they want to throw out. 60% of all the trash that ends up on the road is not coming from people in cars, it's coming from trucks that are not properly tarped. There's laws in here that says every load has to be properly tarped. Because it just flies out and they're driving down the road, and I'm sure you've seen it.
Not care in the world.
Yeah, and it makes you mad, you know. So,
Besides the citizens self-policing one another and collecting a $250 reward, who can enforce this?
any law enforcement officer.
So a sheriff's deputy can do this?
That's correct. Any law enforcement officers in the state of Tennessee, THP, Sheriff's Department, Police Department, that can issue a citation.
What about our codes?
Code?
Police?
I'm not sure about codes. I don't think so, Becky.
They're not truly law enforcement, are they?
Yeah, I think you can.
No, but
But we have these codes in the Southern Standard Building Code and through the county, and we can write notices of violations and then citations if they don't clean it up within a certain amount of time.
But under the, yeah, they can do that once it's dumped on the side of the road. But if they see somebody throwing trash out, I think they have to be a law enforcement officer.
Or they can go turn them in and get $250. Convict them.
What to do with
And it's much easier than what it used to be because everybody's got a phone.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's got a camera.
For sure.
There's a license plate, Judge.
But it's a revenue stream, but more than that, it keeps our county beautiful.
Well, here's another educational step, is what's happened in the past is we can see Commissioner Harris do it, and we get law enforcement to write him a citation, we get to court, and it gets thrown out of court.
Well, then that's where we bring pressure on the environmental judge and tell them, if we'll start keeping a record, and if they throw out everything that comes into them on first offense, then we need to sit down and have a talk and bring that judge in here and we'll get serious about it, because if this county commission and the governments of this county get serious about this, then there's always elections.
Should you go ahead and warn Her Honor that?
I'm going to.
We have no problem with getting Lisa sitting right here where Rebecca is and having a conversation with her.
I think that'd be smart.
Yeah, let her know we're serious.
Absolutely.
Do you
Well,
have
for
any
some-
intentions of,
for someone to turn in someone else, say, I saw somebody dump some trash, but I didn't have my camera with me. It's kind of like Bigfoot running across the road.
It's gonna be hard.
Am I going to get $250 for calling up Mike?
Only if they get
saying,
convicted.
hey,
You better have evidence.
It says conviction. It's got
Yeah.
to
Okay,
conviction.
okay.
Yeah,
But everybody has one.
That's right.
all right. Go ahead.
do you have any intentions of reinstating the job Bart Smith had?
I've been, some commissioners have actually asked that. It'd be up to the county commission if they're willing to fund it. I'm willing to request it.
Only other thing I want to point out, I'm driving down the road and I see somebody throwing trash out, and I got my phone with me, I still can't use it because I'm driving.
True.
And if I turn something in to the sheriff saying, hey, and I'm moving down the road, You know, who's gonna get the ticket? I got a feeling
I think,
I'm gonna get the ticket.
I think your $250 would cover your fine for your phone, though.
That's right. That's right. Well, I also suggest that Chairman rises tractor.
Yeah, yeah. Tell them it's for farm use.
I've got a mount for my tractor.
All right, may I suggest that we table this particular item and bring it back up at our next Public Works meeting for discussion? Sure.
Is that one on the 26th or the next one for the next month?
Yes and yes. Yeah. I don't think this will require much more discussion. But let's sleep on it and think of the what ifs and, you know, if we have any questions on it, we'll bring it back up, so. Any other questions from Mac and Rebecca?
What do y'all need me to work on next, or we just wait on the next meeting?
Reach out to Doc Holliday one more time, I guess.
Okay.
Just because it would be interesting.
Okay, crowd.
Yeah, I know. Any,
I want to thank, publicly,
Yeah.
I want to thank
I do
Becky
too.
for
Yes.
her assistance in helping us put together this RFI. She is serious about this. She's knowledgeable, well-respected throughout the Mid-State area, and she's doing a yeoman's work. She already had a lot of this stuff already in her computer, and it made it that much easier for us to put this draft together. But I want to thank you, Becky, for helping Rutherford County.
Can anybody not print this at home if they get an email from Rachel? Okay, Rachel.
We can copy it, and put it
I can
in all
print
the
it for you.
boxes anyway.
Okay, maybe do both.
Yeah, we can do
Put it
both.
in our mailbox. And I urge you to, over the next couple of weeks, thoroughly go through it, put any questions down, do the what ifs. If you were a vendor and you read this, is there enough information for you to not call Steve 7 times a day and ask questions?
And that's the goal. I mean, we want to have
Yeah.
enough information that someone can respond to it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to want to actually put out the addendum. When you
Right.
get one question, you're going to, everybody that,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
everybody that.
And Jeff, I want to thank you for attending too. That was good information.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
March meeting.
Oh yes, the March meeting. We have a conflict on Tuesday, March 3rd. There is a county primary that day. So let me ask you this, if you would all look at your calendars. To me, the next logical choice would be move it exactly 1 week, which would be Tuesday, March 10th. There is, on the county calendar, no other meetings that night. So instead of March 3rd, I would like to suggest we move this to March 10th at 5:30. Does anybody have any conflicts for March 10th, Tuesday? Seeing none, we have a March 10th meeting, and will you please send out everybody a notice, a reminder that March 10th is our next meeting date, and March 26th is our Public Works.
February.
Yeah, that's what I meant. February 26th is our.
February 11th is infrastructure.
Yes, February, and Phil Dodd, you and I agreed that we do need our infrastructure committee on February 11th.
Correct.
Okay.
At 11:30.
11:30, yeah. So you'll send that notice to the paper tomorrow.
So this one's already been, I'll just have to change these.
Okay.
Yeah, this one went last month.
Okay. Thank you all. I appreciate your attendance for this 3-hour meeting.